Chapter 2791. Uncle. Yin Yin looked at Qin Feiyang again, and was about to speak. But suddenly, his expression froze, and a trace of bewilderment appeared in his eyes. Bullying a woman and killing her to silence her. I didn't expect there to be such an awe-inspiring person in Forgotten Continent. Qin Feiyang walked over step by step. You are. Yin Yin stared at Qin Feiyang, his face filled with disbelief. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, try and see if you can kill me to silence me too. Don't come over. Yin Yin retreated in fear. Why would this person appear? Didn't he leave Great Qin hundreds of years ago? Weren't you very awe-inspiring when you were bullying a woman just now? What? Have you become a soft-footed shrimp now? Qin Feiyang took a step forward and instantly landed in front of Yin Yin. Yin Yin instinctively threw a punch at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang raised his arm and pointed his index finger at Yin Yin's fist. Immediately, Yin Yin's fist stopped in the air. What a powerful force. Yin Yin was shocked. Since you married her, you have to treat her sincerely. With your attitude, calling you a scum is too flattering. You're worse than a scum. Qin Feiyang opened his mouth, and a terrifying force suddenly roared out from his fingertips. Yin Yin screamed and flew out. His arm was also directly shattered, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Serves you right. Lu Xiaofei got up and stared at Yin Yin in disgust. You're still gloating? Look at yourself. What have you become? Lu Xiaojia rolled her eyes at her brother, and took out a regeneration pill. She tiptoed and put it into Lu Xiaofei's mouth. It's just a small injury. Lu Xiaofei chuckled. Qin Feiyang ignored Yin Yin and turned to Wang Jin. He stopped beside her and smiled. Long time no see. It's really you? Wang Jin asked. Yes. Nodding his head, Qin Feiyang held onto Wang Jin's arm and smiled. Get up. Wang Jin nodded. Just as he was about to get up, he suddenly hugged his stomach and groaned in pain. His face was full of pain. What happened? Qin Feiyang was bewildered. White-eyed Wolf suddenly looked at the ground and shouted, Little Qinzi, there's blood. Blood? Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked down. There was indeed a large pool of blood on the ground. He took another look. The blood came from Wang Jin's inner thigh. Are you hurt? Qin Feiyang was surprised and quickly took out a healing pill. Wait. Lu Xiaofei hurriedly waved his hand and ran over. He said in shock. Uncle, this doesn't seem to be an injury. What is it? Qin Feiyang looked at him anxiously. It's a miscarriage. Wang Jin said weakly. Miscarriage? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Yes. I'm already pregnant with his child. Just now he kicked me in the stomach. It may cause me to miscarry, Wang Jin said. His face was extremely pale. You're already pregnant with his child? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Lu Xiaofei and said, Then what should we do? How should I know? Lu Xiaofei was speechless. He had never encountered such a thing. Although Qin Feiyang had been through hundreds of battles, it was also the first time he encountered such a thing. For a moment he was at a loss. Uncle, let's send her home first, Lu Xiaojia said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. He picked up Wang Jin and looked at Lu Xiaofei saying, Lead the way. Okay. Lu Xiaofei came to his senses and quickly ran forward. Qin Feiyang glanced at Yin Yin, who was lying on the side and looking at Wang Jin in shock. A cold light flashed in his eyes and he said, White-eyed Wolf, take him with me. Okay. White-eyed Wolf took a step forward and kicked Yin Yin's back. He shouted, Let's go. Yin Yin came to his senses and looked at White-eyed Wolf. He said, She said that she's already pregnant with my child, right? And then, White-eyed Wolf said, So, I have a descendant? Yin Yin murmured. You don't know? It seems that you're really an irresponsible man. Hurry up, don't force me to make a move, White-eyed Wolf shouted. A village was located in a mountain. The village was made up of simple wooden buildings. There were as many as 1 million people in the village. This was where the Sky Tiger tribe and the Wang clan were located. The people of the two tribes were very leisurely. The old people drank tea and chatted outside while sunbathing. The younger generation was training and hunting in the surrounding mountains. The children gathered in various places, laughing and playing. A stone statue stood at the entrance of the village. The stone statue was exactly the same as Qin Feiyang. Bang! Suddenly, a terrifying aura rolled over from afar. The people in the village were shocked and looked up. Who was that? The aura was so strong, and it seemed a little familiar. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black figure rushed out from a wooden building halfway up the mountain, and stood in the sky above the village with a trace of surprise in his eyes. This seems to be the young master's aura, the person murmured. Whoosh! Another old man flew into the sky, his face full of surprise and doubt. Old Yen, this aura. The old man looked at the void in the distance in surprise. That was right. These two people were Yen Wei and Wang Yangfeng. After hundreds of years of getting along, the two of them had become good friends despite their age difference. This is impossible. The young master is in the ancient realm. How can it be his aura? Yen Wei shook his head. But this aura is exactly the same as his, Wang Yangfeng said. Whoosh! The aura approached from afar, and soon entered the sight of Yen Wei and Wang Yangfeng. It's the young master. Looking at Qin Feiyang, who was carrying Wang Jin, their eyes trembled. Immediately after, their faces were full of surprise and joy. When the two of them came back to their senses and were ready to welcome him, Qin Feiyang had already landed in front of them. Greetings, young master. The two of them immediately knelt on one knee and said respectfully, It's him. Qin Feiyang. The people of the Sky Tiger tribe and the Wang clan were also in an uproar in an instant. Are you blind? Can't you see that Wang Jin's situation is not good? Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and shouted. Right now he was not in the mood to reminisce. Wang Jin, Yen Wei and Wang Yangfeng were stunned. Only then did they notice that Qin Feiyang was carrying Wang Jin. They hurried forward and asked, What's wrong with her? It seems to be a miscarriage, Qin Feiyang said. What? Jin is pregnant. Why didn't we know? Wang Yangfeng was stunned. Qin Feiyang said angrily. Is this the time to make a fuss? Understood, understood. Wang Yangfeng hurriedly took Wang Jin, looked at an old woman below, and said, Come up quickly and help me take a look. The old woman flew up, took Wang Jin, and laid her flat in the void. Immediately after, the old woman waved her hand, and a battle chi emerged. A barrier appeared, blocking everyone's sight. Young master, what's going on? Yen Wei was suspicious. Qin Feiyang was silent. At this moment, the white-eyed wolf also flew over with Yen Yin. White-eyed wolf. Yen Wei and Wang Yangfeng looked at the white-eyed wolf, but found that the white-eyed wolf's eyes were also terrifyingly gloomy. Immediately after, the two of them looked at Yen Yin and asked, Yen Yin, what's going on? Yen Yin lowered her head, not saying a word. Her face was full of fear. This atmosphere is not right. Yen Wei and Wang Yangfeng looked at each other and couldn't help but feel nervous. The people of the Sky Tiger tribe and the Wang clan below were the same. Master. Soon after, accompanied by a cry of surprise, two young men aggressively flew out from the void in the distance. These two people were Wang Xiaojie and Qin Chen. Originally, he and Qin Chen were hunting in the distance, but suddenly sensed Qin Feiyang's aura, and immediately ran back to check. Running back to take a look, it was really Master who had returned. Wang Xiaojie landed in front of Qin Feiyang and asked in surprise, Master, when did you come back? Qin Chen was silent, but there was also a trace of joy in his eyes. But Qin Feiyang only glanced at the two of them, and then shifted his gaze to the barrier. What's going on? Wang Xiaojie and Qin Chen looked at each other, and then looked at Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia, the white-eyed wolf. Lu Xiaofei and his sister, the white-eyed wolf, were also silent. This feeling was not right. Wang Yangfeng walked to Wang Xiaojia's side and whispered, Xiaojia, your sister is pregnant. What? Sister is pregnant? Then am I going to be an uncle? Wang Xiaojia was stunned. But before Wang Xiaojia could be happy, Wang Yangfeng said again, But it seems that she is going to have a miscarriage. Miscarriage? Wang Xiaojie was stunned and hurriedly said, Why would she have a miscarriage? I don't know either. It was already like this when young master brought her back. Wang Yangfeng shook his head. Wang Xiaojie glanced at Qin Feiyang. walked to Yan Yan's side and said, "Brother-in-law, tell me what's going on?" Yan Yan lowered his head, not daring to look at Wang Xiaojie at all. At this time, the barrier dissipated. The old woman got up and looked at Qin Feiyang asking, "Did Xiao Jin's stomach suffer a heavy blow?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Who did it? So cruel. If Xiao Jin didn't use battle qi to protect the fetus, she would definitely have a miscarriage," the old woman said angrily. "Then how is she now?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Although there is battle qi to protect the fetus, it still affected the fetus. Moreover, Xiao Jin is very weak now and has to be treated immediately. I'll take Xiao Jin down first." After the old woman finished speaking, she carried Wang Jin, landed in the village below, and entered a wooden building. Wang Xiaojie couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang and said, "Master, what the hell is going on?" Yan Wei, Qin Chen, Wang Yangfeng, and the people in the village below also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yan Yun and said, "Do you want to say it yourself, or do we help you?" Swish. In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on Yan Yun. Yan Yun was extremely panicked. "Say it quickly," White-Eyed Wolf shouted. "It's me. I just had a small quarrel with Xiao Jin. On impulse I hit Xiao Jin. I really didn't expect it to turn out like this." "I don't know either. Xiao Jin is pregnant," Yan Yun hurriedly shouted. "You dare to hit my sister?" Wang Xiaojie suddenly rushed in front of Yan Yun, grabbed his clothes and roared. "Xiaojie, I really didn't mean it." Yan Yun shook his head. "Just a small quarrel? Did he just hit Wang Jin?" Qin Feiyang was so angry that he laughed. Yan Yun's body trembled, and he looked at Qin Feiyang in panic. His face couldn't help but turn pale. Chapter 2792. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Xiaofei and said, "Xiaofei, tell everyone." "Yes, uncle." Lu Xiaofei nodded and looked at Wang Xiaojie. "Brother Xiaojie, this is what happened." Lu Xiaofei immediately recounted the process of this matter in detail. "What? He married my sister because of my relationship with Master?" Wang Xiaojie was stunned. Yan Wei, Wang Yangfeng, and the people below all looked at Yan Yun in disbelief. "Young Master, is there a mistake? In my impression, Yan Yun is not such a person." Yan Wei looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Yes. Although he is a little addicted to alcohol, he is still very good to Jiner. We can all see this." Wang Yangfeng added. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and said, "Are you suspecting that I have wronged him?" "We wouldn't dare." The two of them quickly lowered their heads. With the young master's status and strength, was there a need to wrongly accuse a small Yan Yin? "Bastard! How dare you humiliate my sister? I'll kill you!" Wang Xiaojie suddenly roared, grabbed Yan Yun's clothes and punched Yan Yun in the face. Yan Yun immediately screamed, blood splattering from his face. "Xiaojie, I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." Yan Yun wailed desperately. "My sister has had an unbearable experience, but her character is obvious to all. Respect the old and love the young. She is educated and reasonable. It's not easy for my sister to get to where she is today. I will never allow anyone to hurt her again." The furious Wang Xiaojie was completely out to kill. He kicked Yan Yun in the stomach, shattering Yan Yun's energy sea on the spot. Following that, Wang Xiaojie punched Yan Yun's back again. Yan Yun immediately smashed into a patch of grass in the village below like a meteorite. With a bang, a large pit appeared. "Xiaojie, I am your brother-in-law, and the father of the child in your sister's stomach. If you kill me, they will become orphans and widows. Xiaojie, I'm really sorry. Please give me another chance. I will definitely make up for the harm I've done to your sister." Looking at Wang Xiaojie, who was like a god of death, Yan Yun was terrified. He hurriedly crawled up and cried out, "You don't have to make it up to me. As for my sister and her child as her younger brother, I will take good care of them." Wang Xiaojie shook his head. Wang Yangfeng hurriedly pulled Wang Xiaojie and said, "Xiaojie, don't be rash. You have to listen to your sister's opinion on this matter. Sister is too naive. That's why she was deceived by him for so many years." Wang Xiaojie shook off Wang Yangfeng's hand and walked coldly towards Yan Yun. Wang Yangfeng sighed. He looked at Yan Wei and said, Old Yen, persuade little Jia. After all, Yin Yin is from your Sky Tiger tribe. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He turned to look at Yin Wei and frowned. He's from your Sky Tiger tribe? Yin Wei's gaze trembled. He hurriedly knelt in the air and said, Young lord, please forgive me. It's my fault for not disciplining him properly. Not bad. Not bad at all. I really want to know how many more of such scum there are in the Sky Tiger tribe. Qin Feiyang scanned the people in the village below. Everyone in the Sky Tiger tribe was trembling with fear. Yin Wei was even more panicked. Young lord, Old Yin was also fooled by Yin Yun's facade. Actually, the people of our Wang clan and Sky Tiger tribe are all quite good people. Wang Yangfeng bowed and said, When the forest is big, there will always be a few scum. This Yin Yin is indeed hiding his strength. After interacting with him for so long, even I didn't realize that he was such a person. Qin Chen shook his head. Qin Feiyang glanced at Wang Yangfeng and Qin Chen. He took a deep breath and looked at Yin Wei. Get up. Thank you for your kindness, young lord. Yin Wei got up. Qin Feiyang said, In the future, keep your eyes open. People like him should be killed as soon as possible. Yes. Yin Wei replied respectfully. Although this matter has nothing to do with you directly, as the clan leader of the Sky Tiger tribe, it is your dereliction of duty for not educating your tribesmen well. You have to deal with the aftermath of this matter properly. Qin Feiyang said. Yes, young lord. Yin Wei said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Wang Jin's life was already miserable enough. Now that she had met such a scum, the heavens were too cruel to her. No. Shaojie, I beg you don't kill me. I really will change below. Yin Yin looked at Wang Xiaojie, who was standing in front of him like a devil god. His entire being was scared out of his wits. Go to hell and repent slowly, Wang Xiaojie said coldly. He raised his arm and pressed it on Yin Yin's head. No, Yin Yin screamed. But it was useless. As Wang Xiaojie exerted force, Yin Yin's head exploded like a watermelon on the spot. Then he slowly fell to the ground. Killing you is not enough to vent the anger in my heart. Wang Xiaojie roared ferociously. With another kick, Yin Yin's body was also smashed. Flesh and blood were all over the ground. The entire village was dead silent at this moment. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. On one hand, they were a little sad. Although Yin Yin deserved to be killed, without Yin Yin, Wang Jin and the child in her stomach would become an orphan and a widow. The future days would be even more difficult. On the other hand, Wang Jin was such a well-behaved and sensible girl. Why was her fate so rough? Couldn't the heavens pity her a little more? Shaojie stopped at this time. Wang Jin ran out of the wooden building. Shaojin, you can't move around now, the old woman shouted as she chased after him. Wang Xiaojie finally put away his killing intent, walked in front of Wang Jin, and said with a smile, It's all right, sister, mother and we will take care of you and the child in your stomach. Wang Jin looked at the place where Yin Yin died, then turned around and walked into the wooden building. Although fate was unfair, he still had to live on strong. Shaojie, at this time. A woman ran over, looking very worried. Wang Xiaojie looked at the woman and smiled. Mother, go accompany sister and comfort her. Yes. The woman nodded and quickly walked into the wooden building. Sigh. What a pitiful child. The old woman also sighed, and turned to return to the house. Whoosh. Wang Xiaojie took a deep breath, flew into the sky, and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. He bowed and said, Thank you, master, for saving my sister again. Qin Feiyang sized up Wang Xiaojie and said, Not bad, compared to before. You have become more decisive. Wang Xiaojie said, After all, hundreds of years have passed. This disciple should have matured. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Chen again, and said with relief, You are also not bad, still like before, able to keep calm at all times. Qin Chen rubbed his head, revealing a silly smile. Qin Feiyang asked, Have you let go of the hatred for the Mu family and Mu Qin? When Qin Chen heard this, his eyes suddenly sank. Qin Feiyang said, Hatred may be the motivation for you to work hard, but it may also be the root of the disaster that will destroy your life. I understand. The hatred for the Mu family has long dissipated with the destruction of the Mu family. But the hatred for Mu Qing, I really can't forget. Qin Chen shook his head. I understand. However, it is not easy for you to find Mu Qing for revenge. Perhaps there will never be hope, Qin Feiyang said. In the past, Qin Chen had told him about the grudges with Mu Qing. In the past, in order to eat and wear, Qin Chen went to a restaurant to be a waiter. But because he accidentally bumped into Mu Qing made things difficult for him, making the restaurant owner fire Qin Chen and shattering his Qi Ocean. As a direct descendant of the Mu family, Mu Qing opened his all-seeing eye and was deeply doted on by the Mu family. Naturally, no one dared to go against his wishes. Later, Qin Chen's Qi Ocean was destroyed, and he was chased out of the restaurant. He was dissatisfied and ran to find the Mu family to reason, but in the end he met Mu Qing at the door. It was also at that time that Mu Qing forced him to take the Calamity Spirit Pill. It was also because of taking the Calamity Spirit Pill that Qin Chen lost his cultivation and became a cripple. It was also because of this that Qin Chen's parents died of depression. At that time, Qin Chen even thought of suicide, which showed how big of a blow it was to him. In other words, Mu Qing was the executioner that caused the destruction of Qin Chen's family. Other grudges can be put down, but the death of one's parents, in all fairness, I believe that no one can easily put it down. Whether there is hope or not, I will not give up, Qin Chen said. Qin Feiyang sized up Qin Chen. This little guy's perseverance and unyielding character really made people have a whole new level of respect for him. Young master, don't keep standing here, let's go over there and sit and talk, Yin Wei said. Forget it. Originally, I came with a good mood, but I didn't expect to encounter such a thing, and my mood was instantly ruined. Qin Feiyang shook his head. I'm sorry. Yin Wei lowered his head and blamed himself. All right, just discipline your clansmen well in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Yes. Yin Wei nodded respectfully. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and 10 crystal veins and spirit veins appeared. This is... Yin Wei and Wang Yangfeng were surprised. Spirit vein, crystal vein. Qin Feiyang explained briefly, looked at the two of them and smiled. This is for you. This is too precious, please don't. Yin Wei and Wang Yangfeng hurriedly waved their hands. Qin Feiyang said unhappily. Since I'm giving it to you, just accept it. Why are you being so polite? This. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. All right then, thank you, young master. Qin Feiyang waved his hand again, and 20 supreme-level divine arts and hundreds of legendary divine artifacts appeared. Looking at the two of them. This is also for you. These divine artifacts and divine arts each have the power to destroy heaven and earth. So in the future, when you teach these divine artifacts and divine arts, you must look at the other party's character. White-Eyed Wolf said. White-Eyed Wolf is right. You must not give them to people with bad intentions. Qin Feiyang nodded. This subordinate will remember. The two of them bowed. Also, take good care of Wang Jin, Qin Feiyang said. The two of them nodded. All right then, I'll go to the Central Divine Kingdom first. When I return, I'll meet up with you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Farewell, young master. The two of them smiled at each other and bowed. It seemed that the young master was just annoyed and didn't want to stay here any longer. He wasn't really angry with them. Qin Chen, you also come with me to the Central Divine Kingdom. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Chen and said. Me too. Qin Chen was stunned. Master, what about me? Wang Xiaojie hurriedly asked. You won't stay at home to take care of your sister? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. This, Wang Xiaojie smiled awkwardly and nodded. All right, I'll look for you after my sister calms down. Qin Feiyang shook his head and took a step forward. He brought along the white-eyed wolf, Lu Xiaofei and his sister, and Qin Chen and quickly left. After Qin Feiyang left, Yin Wei immediately looked at the clansmen below and shouted sternly. You've all seen it, right? If anyone dares to be like Yin Yin in the future, don't blame me for being rude. The people of the Wang clan will also remember this lesson. In short, you have to remember one thing. Talent is secondary, character is the most important. No matter how talented one is, if one has bad character, he will only become a scourge in the end. We will not tolerate such people. We will kill whoever we find. Wang Yangfeng also shouted with a murderous aura. The people below couldn't help but lower their heads. Moreover, from now on, Wang Jin is my, Yan Wei's, adopted daughter. Anyone who dares to harm her or slander her behind her back will be my, Yan Wei's, enemy. Yan Wei shouted again. This was to protect Wang Jin. Yan Wei was not only the chief of the Sky Tiger tribe, but he had also followed Qin Feiyang for many years. Whether it was in the Great Qin or in the Forgotten Continent, he had a very high status. Even the emperor and Lu Qiuyu treated him with respect. Therefore, if Wang Jin became his adopted daughter, her status would undoubtedly rise. Naturally, no one would dare to say anything. When the clansmen below heard this, they seemed to be very gratified by Yan Wei's decision. Yan Wei retracted his gaze and looked at Wang Yangfeng. Old Wang, go and take a look at Xiao Jin first. I will settle these spirit veins and crystal veins. Also, Yan Wei gave Wang Yangfeng a divine weapon and a divine art, and said, give these to little Jin as well. Uncle Yan, why are you giving these to my sister? We'll talk about it later. How can the harm Yan Yan caused my sister be compensated with these external things? Wang Xiaojia said unhappily. Xiaojia, compensation is only one aspect. I also hope that Xiao Jin will have the ability to protect herself when she encounters difficulties in the future. For example, if she had the ability to protect herself this time, why would she be bullied by Yan Yun? Xiao Jin's fate in this life is already bumpy enough, so I can't let her suffer in the future. Also, when the young master returns, I will find some pills to help your sister raise her cultivation and unlock all the doors of potential. This way, even if you are not by her side in the future, she can take care of herself. Yan Wei sighed. I see. Wang Xiaojia was enlightened and nodded. All right then, thank you, Uncle Yan. There's no need to thank a family. Yan Wei smiled and immediately got busy. Wang Yangfeng also brought the divine weapon and divine technique to visit Wang Jin. Wang Xiaojia raised his head and looked in the direction where Qin Feiyang and the others left. Why did Master call Qin Chen? This made him very concerned. Xiaojia, why are you still standing up there? Wang Yangfeng asked suspiciously when he saw Wang Xiaojia still standing in the void. I'll be right there. Wang Xiaojia snapped back to his senses, and hurriedly retracted his gaze and flew down. Chapter 2793. Walking above the mountains and rivers. Memories of the Forgotten Continent involuntarily surfaced in his mind. If his life was divided into 3 parts, the Forgotten Continent would be 1/3. For example, Yan Wei, Tantai Li and Mu Qing, they all met here. So this was a place he would never forget. Little Qin Zi, do you still remember how your great-grandmother tricked you? White-Eyed Wolf suddenly said. Of course I remember. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. At that time, because of Tantai Li's torment, he almost faced the situation of being the enemy of the whole world in the Forgotten Continent. In the end, he found out that it was to train him. Uncle, then can you tell us about your experience in the Forgotten Continent? Lu Xiaofei was curious. Experience, Qin Feiyang murmured with a smile. This is a rather long experience. It can't be finished in 10 days or half a month. It's okay, take your time, Lu Xiaofei said. Qin Chen followed by the side, not saying a word. In the past, the Forgotten Continent was not like now, where you could enter and leave as you wish. Qin Feiyang said. It's the same now. Although we can enter the Forgotten Continent as we wish, it's difficult for others to enter the Butterfly Valley. It's the same for the people of the Forgotten Continent. It's difficult to enter the Ice Lake. Lu Xiaofei said. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked, the 2 continents are not connected? No, because grandfather and Uncle Gongsun Bei considered that if the 2 continents were connected, it might bring a lot of trouble. Lu Xiaofei said. So it was their decision. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Since it was the decision of his father and Gongsun Bei, they must have gone through layers of consideration. Uncle, continue. Lu Xiaofei's face was full of expectation. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. When your Uncle Wolf and I first entered the Forgotten Continent, it was not long after we entered the spirit state. Qin Feiyang slowly explained. Time passed little by little. Finally, a city covered in ice and snow entered the line of sight of the group. This was the 9th region, Ice Crystal City. It was also the entrance to the Central Divine Kingdom. I never thought that you would have experienced so much in the Forgotten Continent. Compared to you, my sister and I are really like flowers in a greenhouse. Lu Xiaofei shook his head and sighed. You only know now? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Ha! Lu Xiaofei laughed dryly. There are too many problems in a person's life. If you want to grow up, you have to learn to face them alone. Qin Feiyang said. I also want to go out and gain experience, but father and mother won't allow it. Lu Xiaofei rubbed his forehead and said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said. It's not that they don't allow it. It's just that you're not ready. Do we still need to prepare for this? Lu Xiaofei was stunned. Of course. Do you think that just running out casually is called training? You need to have a goal for your training. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Target. Lu Xiaofei lowered his head and pondered. Very soon, the group of people approached Ice Crystal City. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, in order to avoid unnecessary sensations, let's hide our identities. You still know how to hide your identity. Brother thought that you were going to run in openly like this. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. In today's Great Qin and Forgotten Continent, who didn't know Qin Feiyang? Once Qin Feiyang appeared in Ice Crystal City, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and shook his head. This damn wolf cub really didn't let go of any opportunity to look down on him. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and an illusory form pill appeared. He threw it into his mouth and turned into the appearance of a big man. The white-eyed wolf turned into a big black dog. Lu Xiaofei and his sister, Qin Chen, didn't change their appearances. The explanation they gave was that there weren't many people who knew them anyway. Moreover, they knew the person guarding the altar, so it would be convenient for them. Ice Crystal City. Although there were guards guarding it, they weren't very strict. The group of people entered the city smoothly. A few hundred years had passed. Ice Crystal City had expanded a lot, but walking on the streets and looking around, Qin Feiyang could still see some of the shadows of the past. Come and take a look, the best mink fur coat. The sounds of hawking could be heard all around, and the streets were also filled with people and carriages, forming a bustling scene. Unknowingly, the group of people walked to a plaza. In the center of the plaza stood a majestic statue. This statue was Qin Feiyang again. There's even a statue of you here? The white-eyed wolf was astonished. This is very normal. It was only because of Uncle that the Forgotten Continent was able to escape that disaster, so the people here are naturally extremely respectful towards Uncle. Lu Xiaofei said in a low voice. Actually, there's no need to do this. Everyone living well is the best reward for me. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's what you think, but everyone doesn't think so. You saved 2 continents, they should at least show some appreciation for you. And, only in this way will you not be forgotten. Otherwise, after a few hundred years, how many people will still remember you? Lu Xiaofei said. Is it that important whether they remember me or not? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Lu Xiaofei said. Are you kidding? This is a supreme glory, of course it's important. Glory, Qin Feiyang muttered. Some things, even if explained to Lu Xiaofei, he wouldn't understand. After all, he was still too young. Beside the statue was the altar that led to the Central Divine Kingdom. Between the statue and the altar, there was an old man in black sitting cross-legged. The old man was as motionless as a mountain. Although it was snowing heavily, there wasn't a single snowflake on the old man's body. When the snowflakes fell on him, they instantly melted. An old acquaintance. Looking at this old man, Qin Feiyang's eyes gradually revealed a trace of a smile. Grandpa Yi. Lu Xiaojia shouted to the old man, and ran over happily. The old man opened his eyes and looked at Lu Xiaojia. There was a touch of affection on his old face. Grandpa Yi, did you miss me? Lu Xiaojia ran over, hugged the old man's arm and asked coquettishly. Yes. The old man looked kind and dotingly rubbed Lu Xiaojia's head. Grandpa Yi, what about me? Lu Xiaofei also ran over. Yes, I miss both of you. The old man chuckled. At this time, Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Qin Chen also entered the square and walked toward the old man. Greetings, senior. Qin Chen bowed to salute. You're here too. The old man lightly smiled to Qin Chen. After that, he glanced at Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. After which, he turned to Lu Xiaofei and his sister as he asked in a low voice, Are they together with you too? Yes. Lu Xiaojia nodded. Then who are they? Why haven't I seen them before? And where did you meet them? The old man asked in a low voice. Grandpa Yi, what do you mean? Are you suspecting that they are bad guys? Lu Xiaofei asked in astonishment. You two are too young and too naive. You don't know how cruel the world is. The old man said in a deep voice. Hee hee. Grandpa Yi, they are not bad guys. They are our uncles. Lu Xiaojia laughed. Uncles? The old man was slightly stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf for a while and wondered, Why didn't I know that you have such an uncle? Old man Yi, what are you thinking? If we are really bad guys, do you think the two of them can still see you? White-Eyed Wolf was speechless. The old man looked at White-Eyed Wolf in surprise. The White-Eyed Wolf chuckled and said, Take a guess, who exactly are we? There will be a prize if you guess correctly. The old man looked at Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf. He had no impression of them at all. However, judging from the big black dog's tone, they seemed to be very close. And he was Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia's uncle. Uncle? He seemed to have heard from Lu Zheng that because of Qin Feiyang and Lu Hong's relationship, the Qin clan became Lu Hong's family. If he was really the uncle of Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia, then the person in front of him must be the son of the emperor and Lu Qiuyu. However, he had seen all the children of the emperor and Lu Qiuyu, and there was no such person at all. The old man racked his brains, but he still could not figure it out. He had thought of Qin Feiyang, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Because he knew that Qin Feiyang had gone to the ancient world and could not be in the great Qin. The old man smiled helplessly. He looked at the siblings and said, Don't keep me in suspense. Just tell me. Lu Xiaojia giggled and said in a low voice, Grandpa Yi, he is Qin Feiyang's uncle. What? The old man's eyes widened, and he immediately looked at Qin Feiyang. It's been a long time. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. The old man was dumbfounded. It was completely out of his expectations. You old man. They all call us uncle, and you still can't guess our identity. It seems that the older you get, the more muddle-headed you become. The White-Eyed Wolf shook his head. The old man looked at the White-Eyed Wolf, then at Qin Feiyang, and then at Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia. The siblings nodded with a smile. Is it really Qin Feiyang? The old man looked at Qin Feiyang, then at the White-Eyed Wolf and asked, Then you are the White-Eyed Wolf? You are the White-Eyed Wolf. Your whole family are White-Eyed Wolves. The White-Eyed Wolf rolled his eyes. The old man looked at the White-Eyed Wolf in a daze. This seemed to be something that only the White-Eyed Wolf could say. You know. Why are you here? Didn't you go to the ancient world? The old man was a little incoherent. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, We came back a few days ago, so we specially came to see you old friends. Then what about your appearance? The old man asked. Do you still need to ask? With such a big statue erected here, if we didn't change our appearance, would we be able to walk here alive? The White-Eyed Wolf said. Ha, that's true. The old man laughed dryly and nodded. How is it? How have you been these years? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Good, very good. The old man quickly nodded and asked. How about you? And Miss and Rishwang, have they come back? How are they doing now? The miss he mentioned was Tantai Li. As for Qin Rishwang, she was not only his relative, but also his disciple. Naturally, the old man's identity was revealed. Yishu. We are all good. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile and transmitted his voice. Great-grandmother, do you want to come out for a while? Chapter 2794. Forget it. Otherwise, everyone will be teary-eyed when we leave. After a moment of hesitation, Tantai Li's voice sounded. Okay. He looked at Yishu and said with a smile, Great-grandmother and the others didn't come back, but they're doing very well. You don't have to worry. It was also them who told me to come back and see you when I came back. They didn't come back, Yishu murmured, a trace of disappointment on his old face. Then he smiled and said, All right, as long as they're doing well. They're very happy now, the white-eyed wolf said. Why do you say that? Yishu looked at the white-eyed wolf curiously. The white-eyed wolf said, Because they found Qin Batian. What? Qin Batian is still alive? Yishu was surprised. Of course. He's in the ancient world. The white-eyed wolf nodded. They found Qin Batian. It would be strange if Miss and Rishwang weren't happy. Yishu chuckled. Qin Feiyang also smiled and asked, What about the others? How are they doing? They're doing well. Yishu nodded and smiled. Let's not talk here. Let's go to the Central Divine Kingdom first. Everyone will be happy to see you back. Then let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled. He was also somewhat impatient. Yishu waved his hand, and the altar quickly recovered. Why are you guarding the altar here? Did you do something wrong and Gongsun-bei sent you here? The white-eyed wolf smiled slyly. You're still as funny as ever. The world is peaceful now. What mistake can I make? I'm just bored. Gongsun-bei takes care of everything in the Pill Pagoda. I really have nothing to do, so I came here to guard the altar. Yishu shook his head. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, It seems that you admire Gongsun-bei's ability. Gongsun-bei is truly capable. Thank you for being merciful and not forcing him to stay by your side. Yishu chuckled. With Gongsun-bei's ability, if he really followed me to the ancient realm, his achievements would probably be far greater than what they are now. Qin Feiyang's tone was somewhat regretful. That's for sure. But wouldn't our pill tower lose this talent? Although it's a bit selfish of me to think this way. My pill tower really needs someone like him to lead us. Otherwise, our pill pagoda will sooner or later decline. Yishu smiled. Aren't you exaggerating a bit too much? I don't believe that no one in the Forgotten Continent can surpass Gongsun-bei. The white-eyed wolf pouted. You don't say there really isn't. Even Wang Zicheng and the others cannot compare to Gongsun-bei. Yishu shook his head. Qin Feiyang asked, Wang Zicheng and the others are also in the pill tower. Yes. All these years they have been assisting Gongsun-bei and have never left. Although their abilities are slightly inferior to Gongsun-bei's, they are still very outstanding. As for now, whether it's Gongsun-bei or Wang Zicheng, they have all become existences that countless people admire. Yishu smiled. After all, it's been hundreds of years. If they still don't have any achievements, it would be too embarrassing. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Don't say that. Wang Zicheng and the others are working so hard because of you. Yishu said. What does it have to do with me? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. They don't want to disappoint you. Because we all know that you will return sooner or later. When you return, how embarrassing would it be to see that there are no achievements? Moreover, they are all your subordinates. Everyone is paying attention to them. Naturally, they have to work harder. Yishu said. These guys. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Yishu looked at the activated teleportation altar and smiled. Let's go. The group stepped onto the altar one after another. The white-eyed wolf said, Aren't you afraid that no one will guard the altar and take the opportunity to sneak in? Are you kidding? Who would have the guts to do that? Besides, there are people guarding the Central Divine Kingdom. Without our permission, it's impossible to sneak into the Central Divine Kingdom without anyone noticing. Yishu smiled confidently. Is that so? When Brother Zheng Jing and little Qinzi entered the Central Divine Kingdom, didn't it mean that no one was there? The white-eyed wolf looked at him smugly. Yishu was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said, Can the others compare to you freaks? Freaks? Old man, you're mocking us. The white-eyed wolf glared at him unhappily. Haha, Yishu laughed. The Central Divine Kingdom. Pill Pagoda Square. This place had not changed much. Trees lined both sides of the square. Young men and women hid in the trees to flirt. There was also a statue erected in the center of the square. It was another statue of Qin Feiyang. On the other side, there was an altar. An old man sat cross-legged beside the altar. This old man had a monkey face. He was not very tall, but his aura was extremely powerful. He was one of the hidden powerhouses of the Pill Pagoda, the monkey-faced old man. Back then, this person had even hunted down Qin Feiyang. Of course, at that time, the monkey-faced old man was deceived by young Master Hao's father, and did not know the truth. There was also an old man with an aquiline nose. He was also a hidden powerhouse of the Pill Pagoda. Back then, when Qin Feiyang was wandering in the Forgotten Continent, they were two fake gods. As for their current cultivation, needless to say, they had already entered the war god realm in the miracle. Behind the monkey-faced old man was a stone staircase. Above the stone staircase was the main pagoda. Buzz. Suddenly, the altar shone brightly. The monkey-faced old man opened his eyes and looked at the altar. There was a trace of suspicion in his eyes. Soon, 4 people and 1 wolf appeared on the altar. Old Yi. The monkey-faced old man was stunned and said in surprise, "Why did you suddenly come back?" "Can't I come back? Do you really think I was sent to the 9th region?" Yishu was dissatisfied. The monkey-faced old man laughed and looked at Qin Chen and Lu Xiaofei. He smiled and said, "You guys are here too?" "Yes." The 3 nodded and landed in front of the monkey-faced old man. They said respectfully, "Greetings, senior." "No need to be so polite." The monkey-faced old man waved his hand and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. A trace of suspicion flashed in his eyes. He said, "Old Yi, who are they?" "Take a guess. There will be a prize if you guess correctly." Yishu chuckled. The monkey-faced old man was speechless. Still keeping him in suspense, he looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf seriously. After a while he looked at Yishu and said, "Are they the young people you took a fancy to and specially brought to the main pagoda?" "How is that possible?" Yishu shook his head. Then the monkey-faced old man frowned and looked at Qin Chen and Lu Xiaofei. He said, "They are from the Great Qin?" "You guess half of it." Yishu smiled. The monkey-faced old man said impatiently, "I said don't be mysterious. Just tell me." Yishu whispered in the monkey-faced old man's ear. "What?" The monkey-faced old man suddenly stood up and stared at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. His face was full of disbelief. Yishu said, "I knew you would have such an expression." "How is that possible?" The monkey-faced old man muttered. "Senior, I didn't scare you, did I?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "You don't say. I was really scared." The monkey-faced old man smiled bitterly and looked at the man and wolf. He shook his head and said, "You guys came back too suddenly." The white-eyed wolf said proudly, "We want to catch you guys off guard." "Heard about it." The monkey-faced old man shook his head and laughed. Suddenly, the monkey-faced old man seemed to have thought of something and asked, "What about Miss and Rushwang? Why don't I see them?" "They didn't come back." Yishu shook his head regretfully. "Why didn't they come back?" The monkey-faced old man was stunned, and his face suddenly changed. Could it be that they... Don't. Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped and said, "Great-grandmother and the others are fine now. Don't think too much." The monkey-faced old man asked, "Since they're fine, why didn't they come back together?" I can't explain it clearly in a short time. It's a coincidence that I can come back." Qin Feiyang smiled. "All right, as long as Miss and the others are doing well in the ancient world, that's more important than anything." Yishu patted the monkey-faced old man's shoulder. "Are you sure you're not lying to me?" The monkey-faced old man looked at Qin Feiyang. "Why would I lie to you?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. "All right then." The monkey-faced old man nodded and smiled. "It's rare for you to come back. Old man Yi and I will accompany you around. It's an honor." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "Elder He." The monkey-faced old man looked at the main tower above and shouted. Immediately, a middle-aged man came down like lightning. "This old man has something to do. Guard the altar for this old man," the monkey-faced old man said. "Yes." The middle-aged man respectfully replied. By the way, where is Gongsun Bei now? The monkey-faced old man asked. The main tower master is in the meeting hall. Follow. The monkey-faced old man looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Let's go. Qin Feiyang nodded. Immediately, a group of people stepped on the stone stairs and walked up the main tower step by step. Who is this young man? Even old man Yi and the others have to accompany him personally. Elder He looked at Qin Feiyang's back with eyes full of disbelief. The main tower had also been expanded a lot. However, the 10 pill towers that Qin Feiyang was familiar with were still there. Along the way, they met many disciples of the main tower. There were both men and women, and all of them were in high spirits. The main tower had always been a supreme existence in the Forgotten Continent. To be able to enter the main tower was naturally a great honor. However, at this moment, when they saw Qin Feiyang, these young disciples could not help but stop and look. What's the situation? Old man Yi and the others are accompanying him personally. This person, I have never seen him before. But why does he look like he has a background? And that big black dog. Look, that arrogant attitude, that disregard of its relatives. I feel that old man Yi and the others are just small followers in front of it. The disciples whispered in each other's ears. However, Qin Feiyang and the others turned a deaf ear to these discussions. They walked past the disciples one by one with an indifferent expression. The number of disciples in our main tower is now twice as many as when you were in the main tower. It can be said that there are many talents. The monkey-faced old man smiled. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded his head. The white-eyed wolf asked curiously. Then what position do Wang Zicheng and the others hold in the main tower? They don't have an actual position, that is, they stay in the main tower all year round. The monkey-faced old man shook his head. Then, the white-eyed wolf glanced at Qin Feiyang hesitantly and asked, what about Wang Yuer and young Master Hao? Chapter 2795. Wang Yuer has also been in the main tower, replacing Gongsun Bei as the Lord of the Law Enforcement Hall. She's been working hard all these years. As for young Master Hao, we haven't seen him for a long time. The monkey-faced old man shook his head. You haven't seen him? The white-eyed wolf was taken aback. Yes. Over the past few hundred years, he's been training in the Endless Ocean most of the time. The monkey-faced old man nodded. The Endless Ocean. The white-eyed wolf murmured, frowning. Could his training in the Endless Ocean have something to do with his father? His father? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Have you forgotten? His father was sealed in the Endless Sea, Yi Zichen said. The white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and nodded. That's a good thing. After the great battle, all the strong enemies were killed, but then 3 pieces of flesh were found under a pile of rocks. The owners of the 3 pieces of flesh were Zhuge Shenfeng, the Grand Tutor, and the Chief Tower Master. At that time, the inner demons suggested keeping them as stepping stones for the child Qin Haotian. Later, after some discussion, everyone agreed to it. However, the Grand Tutor's piece of flesh was destroyed by them, leaving only the Chief Tower Master and Zhuge Shenfeng. At that time, Qin Yuan personally went to seal it. The location of the seal was the Endless Ocean of the Forgotten Continent, and the Reincarnation Ocean of the Great Qin. Now the white-eyed wolf was obviously suspicious. Was young Master Hao training in the Endless Ocean to save the Chief Tower Master? That doesn't matter. The seal was set up by Uncle Yuan. With young Master Hao's strength, he can't break the seal. However, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yi Shu and the monkey-faced old man. Has young Master Hao changed in the past few years? For example, in terms of personality. The other changes are not big, but he has become taciturn. Yi Shu said. That's for sure. After such a big change, it would be strange if he could still be as carefree as before. Qin Feiyang said. Furthermore, his hatred for you doesn't seem to have dissipated. Yi Shu said. Let him be. In any case, I don't have any killing intent towards him. Besides, the gap between us will only widen in the future. His opponent is no longer me, but my brothers and sisters. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Yi Shu and the monkey-faced old man looked at each other, and shook their heads. In this world, the only person who could say something like this was probably this kid. This was not because he was looking down on young Master Hao, but because he was absolutely confident and domineering. The two of them were no longer on the same level. Not to mention young Master Hao. Even they could only look up to Qin Feiyang. The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes and asked, "Is Wang Yu married?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. What was this damned wolf cub thinking about? No. The monkey-faced old man and Yishu glanced at Qin Feiyang and shook their heads at the white-eyed wolf. She's not married yet? The white-eyed wolf was surprised. There are a lot of people pursuing her over the years. Her grandfather, Wang Su, and her father have been urging her, but she has always been silent. We think she's probably not going to marry for the rest of her life. Yishu shook his head and sighed. In fact, Wang Yu was really a good girl. Whether it was her ability or her character, she was 1 in 100. Unfortunately, fate played tricks on people. Wang Yu is not wrong, and Wang Su is not wrong either. It's Wang Yuanshan's fault. If it weren't for Wang Yuanshan, maybe Wang Yu and I might really be together. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Yes. At that time, you had already tried to accept her. And she had also given a lot to you. At that time, we all thought that you would definitely be together, but we didn't expect Wang Yuanshan to appear halfway. The white-eyed wolf said. This might be fate. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Fate was indeed a mysterious thing. Many things were always beyond one's expectations. They chatted along the way. The group stopped in front of a hall. Inside the hall, more than 20 people were sitting at the table, seemingly discussing something. This was the main tower's conference hall. Qin Feiyang secretly checked with his divine sense on the way, so he knew that Gongsun Bei and the others were now in the conference hall. The group stood outside and didn't make a sound. However, the people in the hall noticed Qin Feiyang and the others, because the door wasn't closed. Sitting at the top was a man in white, about 27 or 28 years old, sitting upright in the chair, exuding a calm temperament. This person was Gongsun Bei. Below, the leader was a woman wearing a long black dress. Her hair was tied up, giving off a cold aura. She was Wang Yu, Wang Zicheng, Raging Bull, Viper, the Spirit Empress, and the others were also there. Everyone had shed the frivolity of the past, becoming mature and steady, exuding the aura of a superior. Apart from these people, the rest were the upper echelons of the main tower. For example, the tower masters and peak masters. Among them, Qin Feiyang also saw two familiar faces, which were Wang Yu's parents. Because Wang Yu's parents used to be the peak master of Saint Peak and Sacred Tower Master. Gongsun Bei looked at Qin Feiyang and the others outside the door, and a trace of suspicion crept into his eyes. Then he looked at the people present and smiled. That's all for today's meeting. Everyone nodded, immediately got up, and walked toward the door. Greetings, elders. Walking out of the door, everyone bowed to Yishu and the monkey-faced old man. At the same time, they cast a puzzled look at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Like the other disciples, they found it a little unbelievable that Yishu and the monkey-faced old man accompanied them. Who was this person? Then we'll be leaving too. Wang Zicheng and the others also got up and looked at Gongsun Bei. Okay. Gongsun Bei nodded. You guys don't have to leave. Yishu walked into the hall and looked at them with a smile. Huh. Wang Zicheng and the others were stunned and looked at Yishu suspiciously. The monkey-faced old man, Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, Qin Shen, and Lu Xiaofei followed into the hall under everyone's puzzled gazes. Wang Yu did not leave either. Her cold face suddenly had a trace of a smile as she walked toward the Lu siblings and said, You two are here. Auntie Yu is getting more and more beautiful. Lu Xiaojia hugged Wang Yu's arm affectionately. They're quite close. The white-eyed wolf was surprised. Last year, Auntie Yu made a special trip to Great Qin to celebrate little Jia's birthday. Lu Xiaofei whispered. I see. Then why do you call her auntie? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Mother told us to call her that. She said that it's affectionate. Lu Xiaofei thought to himself. I'm really speechless. Obviously you should call her auntie. The The white-eyed wolf shook his head. It's just the title. It doesn't matter. Lu Xiaofei shrugged and ran to Wang Yuer saying, Auntie, a day apart feels like 3 years. I really miss you so much. Brat. Wang Yuer glared at Lu Xiaofei, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, and asked in puzzlement, They are? Lu Xiaojia wanted to say it out loud without thinking. However, Lu Xiaofei hurriedly stopped his sister and transmitted his voice. Children, don't talk nonsense. Lu Xiaojia was slightly stunned. Then she looked at Wang Yuer and Qin Feiyang. Her big eyes blinked and gradually revealed a look of realization. What are you siblings doing? Wang Yuer looked at them suspiciously. Nothing. You guys talk. Don't worry about us. We'll just watch from the side. Lu Xiaofei hurriedly pulled Lu Xiaojia and turned around to retreat to Qin Chen's side. Seeing this, Wang Yuer could not help but feel angry. What was going on? You, let's go. A voice sounded outside the door. It was Wang Yuer's mother. Okay. Wang Yuer nodded. Xiaoyu. Yi Shu was about to speak, but he was stopped by Qin Feiyang, who shook his head and said, Let her go. Aren't you guys going to talk? Yi Shu looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. With my relationship with her, if we meet face to face, it will only make the atmosphere more awkward. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. All right. Yi Shu nodded. After Wang Yuer left with her parents, Gong Sunbei stood up and said with a smile, What are you two doing? Acting so mysterious? Yes. Who are this man and dog? And they let you personally lead the way? They're quite influential. Wang Ziqing looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Of course. The white-eyed wolf jumped up and onto the table. With an arrogant and domineering attitude, he shouted, All of you, kneel down and sing conquer to this big brother. Gong Sunbei and the others were stunned. Was there something wrong with this dog? And from the looks of it, it seemed to be quite sick. What's with your reaction? Believe it or not, this big brother will kill you, the white-eyed wolf shouted. Forget it. This is the main tower. If you behave atrociously again, I'll throw you out directly. The big barbarian bull stretched its muscles, and the muscles all over its body concealed a terrifying power. Ouch! How dare you be arrogant in front of this big brother? The white-eyed wolf slapped with his paw and shouted, Get down! The big bull was stunned. He looked at Yi Shu and the monkey-faced old man and asked, Can I do it? Go ahead. Yi Shu chuckled. A cold light flashed in the big bull's eyes. He raised his bull-like fist and smashed it at the white-eyed wolf. The terrifying power hidden in his body surged out like a torrent. Boom! The fist and the paw collided. The great barbarian bull immediately lay down and heavily smashed into the ground, causing the entire great meeting hall to shake. What? Gong Sunbei, Wang Ziqing, and the others stared at the big bull with their mouths agape. It was defeated just like that. How was it? The white-eyed wolf stood on the table, his eyes full of pride. So strong? The big bull got up and stared at the white-eyed wolf in surprise. Not just you, all of you together can only take a single paw, the white-eyed wolf said proudly. Arrogant. Wang Ziqing was furious and shouted, Kill it and eat dog meat. Boom. The aura of the group suddenly erupted. The people outside were alarmed and looked at the conference hall. Tay. The white-eyed wolf smiled disdainfully, raised his paw, and gently lowered it. A trace of divine power appeared. The aura of the group collapsed. Wang Ziqing and the others were also sent flying. Although the white-eyed wolf was merciful and did not suffer any fatal injuries, they were all in a sorry state. Chapter 2796. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Although they were not as strong as the white-eyed wolf, they had been quite united after all these years. Unity was what he wanted to see. However, Wang Ziqing and the others were stunned. Gong Sunbei was the same. This large black dog was too ridiculously strong, wasn't it? What do you think? Do you admit defeat? The white-eyed wolf looked at them proudly. Wang Ziqing sized up the white-eyed wolf, walked to Yi Shu's side, and asked in a low voice, Old man Yi, where did this damn dog come from? Ha! Yi Shu smiled but did not say anything. Can you not keep us in suspense? Wang Zicheng was dissatisfied. Although the other party was very strong, he clearly had no ill intentions. However, their status in the Forgotten Continent was not low now. They knew all the slightly famous powerhouses, but they had never heard of this big black dog. Open your little eyes and take a good look at who I am. The white-eyed wolf grinned, and his appearance immediately began to change. First, his hair turned from black to gold. Then 2 small golden wings appeared on his back. Wang Zicheng and the others stared at the white-eyed wolf. Seeing the white-eyed wolf's transformation, a trace of surprise gradually crept into their eyes. When the white-eyed wolf completely reverted to his true form, the others immediately froze on the ground, their eyes filled with disbelief. Haha. The white-eyed wolf grinned and looked at them. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Fuck. It's you bastard. Wang Zicheng came to his senses and immediately cursed. He ran to the white-eyed wolf and sized him up, as if to confirm whether he was real or not. White-eyed wolf. Gongsun was also stunned on the spot, muttering to himself. What's going on? What happened? Suddenly, a suspicious voice sounded from the outside. Everyone quivered and turned to look, only to see Wang Yu and her parents return. They had returned because they heard the commotion. However, when they arrived outside the main hall, they immediately found that the atmosphere was not right. Following closely, they looked at the white-eyed wolf and were stunned. Wasn't this it? At this moment, the entire hall was dead silent. On one hand, it was the identity of the white-eyed wolf. On the other hand, the return of Wang Yu and her parents undoubtedly made the atmosphere even more awkward. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. In the end, he still had to face it. Everyone present was smart enough to guess the identity of the white-eyed wolf once he revealed his true identity. As expected, when everyone came back to their senses, they all looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, no longer hiding his true appearance. Qin Feiyang, young master, Gongsun Bei, Wang Zicheng, Wang Yu, and her parents all stared fixedly at Qin Feiyang's face. This face. Who could forget it? Long time no see. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang. Gongsun Bei shuddered and quickly walked in front of Qin Feiyang. He grabbed Qin Feiyang's shoulders with both hands and said excitedly, I didn't expect it to be you. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Then I wonder if brother Gongsun welcomes me? Of course. Gongsun Bei nodded, but before he could say anything, a cold voice rang out. My chief tower doesn't welcome you. Get lost immediately. Everyone immediately looked at Wang Yu's father. Because the person who spoke was Wang Yu's father. Father, the chief tower is here. You don't have the right to speak. Wang Yu also turned her head to look with a trace of displeasure on her face. It's fine. Gongsun Bei waved his hand, looked at Wang Yu's father, and sighed. It's been hundreds of years. No matter how deep the grudge is, it should be over by now. Over by now? How can it be so simple? Wang Yu's father snorted coldly. That's where you're wrong. We all saw what happened to Wang Yuanshan with our own eyes. It's all his fault. At that time, Qin Feiyang was already very kind. Because he gave Wang Yuanshan more than once, but Wang Yuanshan didn't cherish it. If it were us, we would have killed him too. Yi Shu said. Wang Yu's father couldn't help but fall silent. Wang Yu glanced at Qin Feiyang, then turned to look at her parents and said, Let's go. Yu. The two of them quickly looked at Wang Yu. Enough, it's really enough. Wang Yu sighed and left without looking back. Her back looked extremely sad. Wang Yu's parents looked coldly at Qin Feiyang, then turned and chased after Wang Yu. Gongsun Bei also sighed deeply. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. I'm not blaming myself. I just feel a little sorry for them. As a big shot of the Forgotten Continent, they can't even distinguish between right and wrong. Qin Feiyang shook his head. They're actually pardonable. After all, they're Wang Yuanshan's descendants. You haven't seen Wang Su. He's been drinking all these years. He's no longer as elegant as he used to be. Gongsun Bei shook his head. Drinking all day? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. Thinking back, he was such an awe-inspiring old man. And now he's depressed all day long. His heart is like dead ashes. If you see him again, you probably won't recognize him. Gong Sunbei said. It's his own fault. Who's to blame? White-eyed wolf pursed his lips. Gong Sunbei sighed. Even so, it's still pitiful. That's enough. The young master finally came back. Let's not talk about these disappointing things. Viper said. Yes, yes, yes. The big barbarian bull nodded repeatedly. He ran to Qin Feiyang and said with a silly smile. Young master, when did you come back? Did you bring back any gifts for us? Qin Feiyang looked at the big barbarian bull in shock and said, asking for gifts as soon as you open your mouth. This isn't your style. Of course, Qin Feiyang knew about the big barbarian bull. Don't be fooled by his charmingly naive and well-developed appearance. In fact, he was very shrewd. Someone as smart as Wang Zicheng had been schemed against by him many times. Hearing this, the big barbarian bull smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone and said with a smile, I'm really gratified to see that you guys are so capable and still so united. You're kidding. We're your soldiers after all. How can we embarrass you? Viper said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He looked at Viper and asked, Are you still studying the use of poison? Don't you know me? I'm loyal to one person. Viper said. Loyal to one person? Qin Feiyang shook his head speechlessly and asked with a smile, Have you achieved anything now? Of course. Viper smiled proudly and said, I can even poison the god of war to death now. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said speechlessly, Is this something to be proud of? Isn't this something to be proud of? Viper asked. I know an old man who uses poison in the ancient world. The poison he created can even poison the overlords of the Nine Heaven State. Qin Feiyang was naturally talking about the Grand Elder of the Nine Heaven Palace. The deputy pavilion master of the Ru Bao Pavilion was so strong, but he was still crippled by the Grand Elder. It was obvious. How terrifying was the Grand Elder's use of poison? Nine Heaven State? Viper was stunned. Gong Sunbei, Wang Zicheng and the others also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Above the god of war is the Divine Lord. Above the Divine Lord is the Paragon God. And above the Paragon God is the Nine Heaven State. Think about it, how big is the gap between you and that old man? Qin Feiyang looked at Viper and smiled. Viper was stunned. There are so many realms above the god of war? Yeah. Qin Feiyang nodded. Viper asked. Then what is your and Brother Wolf's cultivation level now? Us. I'm really not talented, I've just stepped into the Nine Heaven State. Qin Feiyang laughed. The group of people looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. After not seeing him for a few hundred years, this guy had also learned how to act cool? However, Qin Feiyang's self-destruction of his cultivation had really scared them quite a bit. Who would have thought that this man and wolf would have already become so strong? It was no wonder that they were no match for the white-eyed wolf's claws when they joined forces. This was an absolute suppression. Are you guys done? Qin Feiyang looked at them and asked. We're done. Everyone nodded. Qin Feiyang laughed. Then let's go to the land of inheritance. Why are we going to the land of inheritance? Gong Sunbei was suspicious. He originally thought that Qin Feiyang would say that everyone would gather at the restaurant, but he didn't expect that they would actually go to the land of inheritance. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I haven't been back for too long, I want to take a look. Alright then. Gong Sunbei couldn't figure out Qin Feiyang's thoughts, so he didn't ask anymore and opened a portal. Immediately after, everyone entered in a single file. The land of inheritance. Qin Feiyang had once obtained the experience of the soul refining technique here. There were a total of 4 statues here. The first statue was of the first-generation chief pagoda master, Tantai Li's father. The second statue was of the first-generation chief pagoda master's disciple. The third statue was of Tantai Li herself. The fourth statue was of Qin Batian. At this moment, in the square where the statue was, an old man was sitting cross-legged. He had the cultivation of a god of war. He was the old man with a hooked nose. Yishu ran to the 9th area. The monkey-faced old man was in the Pill Pagoda Square, while the old man with a hooked nose stayed in the land of inheritance. Sensing the aura of Qin Feiyang and the others, the old man with a hooked nose opened his eyes. When he saw Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, his gaze trembled. "Greetings, old senior." Qin Feiyang bowed. I wouldn't dare. The old man with a hooked nose hurriedly got up and waved his hand. What a joke. Qin Feiyang was the savior of the great Qin and the forgotten continent. Even if he had to bow, he should be the one bowing to Qin Feiyang. After not seeing you for so many years, old senior has become more polite. Qin Feiyang smiled. The old man with a hooked nose shook his head and smiled. There was nothing he could do about it. If it were someone else, he could accept this bow with a clear conscience. But the person he was facing was Qin Feiyang. This was absolutely impossible. After all, back then, Qin Feiyang had sacrificed himself to save countless people who had died tragically. Such a noble act was enough to earn anyone's respect. When did you come back? Where's Miss and Rushuang? After the old man with a hooked nose calmed down, he looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. A few days ago. As for great-grandmother and the others, they're still in the ancient realm. They're doing well. Qin Feiyang smiled. He knew that the old man with a hooked nose would definitely ask about Tantai Li and Qin Rushuang's current situation like Yi Shu and the others, so he said it in advance. That's good. The old man with a hooked nose smiled and asked. Then why did you and the white-eyed wolf come back this time? I missed you, so I came back to see you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Haha. The old man with a hooked nose laughed, clearly not believing him. It's true. Qin Feiyang said. Is that so? The old man with a hooked nose was taken aback and smiled. Then it's our honor. Although hundreds of years had passed, this young man was still the same as before. He did not put on any airs and gave people a sense of familiarity. Chapter 2797. As you can see, the land of legacy hasn't changed at all. What's there to see? Gong Sunbei looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. But here there are memories that belong to me. Qin Feiyang glanced at the 4 statues and smiled faintly. Memories, Gong Sunbei murmured. The past emerged in his mind like a tide. Indeed, there were memories of Qin Feiyang here. Back then, Qin Feiyang obtained the legacy here, and became the disciple of the Chief Pagoda Master. He also became the successor of the next Chief Pagoda Master. But because of the selfishness of the previous Chief Pagoda Master, he once wanted to kill Qin Feiyang. In fact, at that time, Qin Feiyang was not interested in the position of the Chief Pagoda Master at all. It was completely the imagination of the previous Chief Pagoda Master. It was also because of this that the conflict intensified. In the end, they were like arch-enemies. Of course, Gong Sunbei also knew that even if there was no such thing, Qin Feiyang and the previous Chief Pagoda Master would sooner or later be angry. Because the previous Chief Pagoda Master had almost killed Tantai Li. As Tantai Li's junior, Qin Feiyang naturally could not stand by and watch. Thinking back, how good was my relationship with Mr. Hao? We were like brothers. Unfortunately, fate is also playing tricks on people. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. At that time, Mr. Hao had given him a lot of help. And at that time, whether it was Qin Feiyang or Mr. Hao, they had no illusions about the position of the Chief Pagoda Master. It was because of the Chief Pagoda Master's self-righteousness that everything changed. Perhaps this is the cycle of cause and effect. Gong Sunbei sighed. The sins that had been committed in the past would be retribution sooner or later. The Chief Pagoda Master was the best example. Because of his jealousy of Qin Batian, because of his desire for power, he ruthlessly killed Tantai Li. Later, Tantai Li returned and made him lose everything. This was the so-called where there is cause, there is effect. Cause and effect, Qin Feiyang murmured. Yes. Like Qin Haoyan. Back then he had killed Qin Haoyan's mother. Now, Qin Haoyan wanted to take revenge on him. Like his father. His father had driven him out of the imperial capital and crippled his cultivation. Later, he had entered the imperial capital to seek revenge. And, the dragons wanted to plunder Qin Feiyang and Qin Baishan's bloodline power. Qin Feiyang and Qin Baishan's revenge was the result. Another example. He saved the common people because of karma. Now the people of the world were grateful to him. This was the result. All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang seemed to have understood something, and his body quietly filled with an obscure aura. The white-eyed wolf was the first to notice Qin Feiyang's abnormality. He looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. At this moment, he felt that Qin Feiyang had become very ethereal. He was clearly right in front of him, but he seemed to be unable to capture him. What was going on? That's right. Everything in this world can't escape karma. It doesn't matter if it's a human or a ferocious beast. Every living thing in this world must have a cause and effect. In fact, this cause and effect is also a kind of power. Furthermore, this power seems to be inextricably linked together by thousands of threads. In this way, cause and effect are formed. Qin Feiyang whispered and slowly raised his arm. A wisp of almost transparent flame slowly condensed. This wisp of flame exuded an incomparably mysterious and profound aura. At this moment, the surrounding void began to distort. Gong Sunbei and the others finally noticed Qin Feiyang's abnormality, and they all had a look of surprise. This is the aura of the power of law. The white-eyed wolf stared at the flame, and his eyes suddenly widened. The power of law. Gong Sunbei and the others were taken aback, and turned to look at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. The power of law is a kind of power that surpasses divine power. For example, the time array evolved from the power of time. Little Qin Zi has already comprehended the power of law of light in the ancient realm. And now he seems to have comprehended another power of law. The white-eyed wolf explained, his eyes full of disbelief. There really wasn't any sign at all. Could this be the so-called epiphany? At a certain point in time, when a person came into contact with a matter or a sentence, they could enter a state of enlightenment. This kind of enlightenment was called epiphany. Where there's cause, there's effect, Qin Feiyang murmured, and seemed to have awakened from the state of epiphany. He lowered his head and looked at the flame in his palm, and a smile crept onto his face. Little Qin Zi, this is? The white-eyed wolf hurriedly asked. The power of cause and effect. It's the law of cause and effect, Qin Feiyang smiled. The law of cause and effect? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He knew about the law of slaughter, the laws of light and darkness, and even the law of life and death, but this was the first time he had heard about the law of cause and effect. I didn't know about the law of cause and effect before, but when I just had my epiphany, I suddenly realized that everything in this world can't compare to the law of cause and effect. So this law of cause and effect is also a kind of power. Qin Feiyang smiled. Even if the law of cause and effect really exists, isn't it too simple to comprehend a power of law? The white-eyed wolf was speechless. There's no time or place for epiphany. You'll comprehend it when you come. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. With a thought, the flame in his palm disappeared into his body. Monster! The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. He turned to look at Gong Sunbei and said, "Thank you, brother Gong Sun." "Why are you thanking me?" Gong Sunbei looked at him in confusion. Every kind of epiphany is stimulated at an unintentional moment. And just now that law of cause and effect you mentioned is equivalent to a trigger point, which is also the so-called fuse. In other words, if it weren't for your words, I wouldn't have been able to comprehend the law of cause and effect. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. So that's how it is. Gong Sunbei suddenly understood and smiled. Then this is also the reason why you're so talented. Epiphany doesn't have much to do with one's talent. It's evolved from rich experience and comprehension of the world. Qin Feiyang said. Rich experience, comprehension of the world. Everyone couldn't help but ponder over this sentence. They didn't quite understand it. Don't blindly think about it. With your current ability, you won't be able to understand the true meaning. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. The group smiled bitterly. Everyone understood the meaning of this sentence, but they just couldn't understand the concept behind it. He felt that it was just a very ordinary sentence. The white-eyed wolf asked, "Do you know how many people in the entire ancient world have comprehended the law of cause and effect?" "How many?" Everyone looked at him curiously. The population of the ancient world is innumerable, and there are countless experts. Among them, there are also a lot of people who are stronger than little Qinzi. But the number of people who have comprehended the law of cause and effect can be counted on one hand. It's not an exaggeration to say that even undead stage experts who have surpassed the 9 heavens stage will find it difficult to comprehend the law of cause and effect in their lifetime. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Undead stage? Everyone was surprised. Undead stage experts can destroy the entire Great Qin and Forgotten Continent with a wave of their hand. How terrifying do you think undead stage experts are? The white-eyed wolf said. So powerful? Everyone looked at each other. It was completely beyond their imagination. The white-eyed wolf isn't exaggerating. Among the experts we know, any one of them has the strength to destroy the world. Qin Feiyang nodded. Is the ancient world the biggest world in this world? Wang Zicheng asked. The biggest? Qin Feiyang murmured and shook his head. I don't dare to say for sure. What do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. If it was before, I would tell you with certainty that the ancient world is the biggest and strongest world. But now, when Qin Feiyang said this, he couldn't help but look up at the sky. His deep eyes seemed to be able to peek into the world beyond the sky. There was a 4th level in the divine level. And the small beast also said that there were as many undead stage experts on the 4th level as dogs. If the small beast wasn't exaggerating, then it was hard to imagine how terrifying the 4th level was. Even the ancient realm was probably just a small world the size of a pellet in front of the 4th level. Of course, before seeing it with their own eyes, they couldn't jump to conclusions. After all, the small beast's words weren't necessarily true. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was silent, everyone tactfully didn't ask anymore. Because even if they asked and knew, they could only stare. However, after understanding how powerful this world was, their goals were different. In the past, their vision was limited to the Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent. They felt that it was good enough for everyone to step into the War God stage. But now, their goal was to reach a higher realm. For example, Sir God and Paragon God. Although the chances were slim, they still wanted to try. Fire Lotus, give me 10 crystal veins and spirit veins. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone and secretly transmitted his voice. I've already prepared them for you. Fire Lotus's voice immediately sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. You've already prepared them? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and shook his head with a bitter smile. This girl really knew him too well. She didn't even need him to say anything and she knew what he wanted to do? To be honest, probably even the Emperor and Lu Chuyu didn't know him, as well as Fire Lotus. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and 10 crystal veins and spirit veins immediately appeared. The energy next to them immediately surged in all directions with the land of inheritance as the center. This, Gongsun Bei and the others were shocked and raised their heads to look at the spirit veins and crystal veins. Because at this moment, their cultivations were actually loosening. Do you still remember the Soul Stone? Qin Feiyang looked at Gongsun Bei and asked with a smile. Soul Stone? Gongsun Bei was stunned. After thinking for a while, he said, Are you talking about the Soul Stone that you got from the Guo family when you entered the ancient world? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Of course I remember. Back then, you were able to step into the War God stage so quickly because of the Soul Stone. Gongsun Bei said. The Soul Stone is produced from these spirit veins. Qin Feiyang pointed at the 10 spirit veins and smiled. What? Gongsun Bei's eyes trembled. The other 10 are crystal veins. The divine crystals produced by them have the effect of recovering divine power. I'll give these to your main tower, Qin Feiyang said. This is also very valuable. That karma cycle just now, I just said it casually. You don't have to thank me. Gongsun Bei hurriedly waved his hand. Qin Feiyang looked at Gongsun Bei in shock and said, You think I'm giving you these spirit veins because I comprehended the law of karma? Isn't that the case? Gongsun Bei was stunned and looked at him suspiciously. Chapter 2798. Of course not. The main reason I came to the land of inheritance is to give you the soul line and crystal veins. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. I see. Gongsun Bei nodded. The main tower is too big, and there are too many disciples. The energy of the soul line and crystal veins can't be taken care of. So I think it's best to place the soul line and crystal veins here. As long as the soul line and crystal veins are properly placed, this place will instantly become a true cultivation holy land. At that time, you can let disciples with good talent and character come here to cultivate, Qin Feiyang said. Makes sense. Gong Sunbei nodded and clasped his hands. Thank you so much for giving us such a great gift as soon as you come back. Qin Feiyang smiled. If you really want to thank me, then follow me to the ancient world. The ancient world. Gong Sunbei was shocked. Yishu, the monkey-faced old man, and the old man with the aquiline nose were also stunned. Then, the three of them looked anxious. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Brat, you can't poach our people." It had been hundreds of years, but this kid was still thinking about Gong Sunbei. There was nothing they could do. Gong Sunbei was so outstanding. I'm just joking. Look at how nervous you are. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. You can make such a joke? Our aging hearts won't be able to withstand it. Yishu rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang laughed and jumped into the sky. Then he waved his hand, and the entire land of inheritance was uprooted. After the crystal veins and soul line were placed, and everything was restored, Yishu set up a divine power barrier. Soon, the place was filled with white mist. This was the energy of the soul line and crystal veins. Such terrifying energy. I can feel that if I cultivate here, I can break through in less than half a year. The aquiline-nosed old man sighed. Yishu and the monkey-faced old man nodded. Qin Feiyang, this brat, was truly their lucky star. There's no need to rush into seclusion. Qin Feiyang has finally returned. Naturally, we have to hold a welcoming dinner for him first. Gong Sunbeidao laughed. Right. Old man Yi, quickly go to the Longfeng Pavilion and make arrangements. We want to book the entire place tonight. The monkey-faced old man looked at Yishu and said, There's a fee for booking the whole place. Yishu said, Charging for our own people? You really are a stingy old man. The monkey-faced old man said with disdain. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and asked, Is the Dragon Wind Tower still around? This Longfeng Pavilion also contained many memories that belonged to him. Of course. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is a restaurant that Ruo Shuang built single-handedly. How can this old man let it disappear? Furthermore, right now, this old man is the tower master behind the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Yishu said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization, then shook his head and said, Since you're the landlord, why do you charge for it? It's not easy for you to come back. Of course, this old man has to rip you off. Yishu said. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. Of course. He also knew that this was just a joke. All right, this old man will go to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion first. You guys accompany Feiyang to walk around. Yishu smiled and looked at Qin Feiyang saying, In the years that you weren't here, our main tower has changed quite a lot. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. After Yishu left, Lu Xiaofei rolled his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang saying, Uncle, then my sister and I will also go to the city to walk around? Qin Feiyang was stunned and reminded, Don't run around. We won't. We're going to find Situ Feiyang. When the time comes, we'll go directly to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion to find you. Lu Xiaofei said. White-Eyed Wolf said. Then you can call Fatso and Li Yan. Okay. Lu Xiaofei nodded and turned to look at Qin Chen, laughing. Brother, let's go together? Not going. Qin Chen shook his head. This guy, you're always so boring. Lu Xiaofei pursed his lips and ran out of the main tower with Lu Xiaojia. Gong Sunbei looked at the back of the brother and sister and said with a smile, Looking at these juniors, do you feel old all of a sudden? Yes. Time really flies. Qin Feiyang sighed. Then you should also work hard. Don't wait until Lu Xiaofei's generation has children, and you're not married yet. Gong Sunbei teased. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and looked at Gong Sunbei saying, You have the nerve to talk about me? You seem to be older than me, but I don't see you married and have children. Gong Sunbei was stunned. At this time he really couldn't refute. Let's go and walk around. Qin Feiyang smiled, and divine power surged out, forming a mask on his face. What are you doing? Wang Ziqing looked at him suspiciously, avoiding some unnecessary trouble. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's true. Wang Ziqing nodded. If the news of Qin Feiyang's return spread in the main tower, it would definitely cause an unprecedented sensation. Next, the group of people strolled around the main tower, talking and laughing, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. As for the white-eyed wolf, he turned back into the big black dog. However, although he hid his identity, it still caused quite a stir. Gongsun Bei, the tower master of the main tower, Wang Ziqing and the others, although they didn't have an actual position in the main tower, they were still famous. The monkey-faced old man and the hook-nosed old man, needless to say, in the entire forgotten continent, they were supreme existences. Such a group of big shots actually accompanied a man and a dog to stroll around the main tower? For the disciples of the main pagoda, this was simply a shocking matter. So now everyone was guessing Qin Feiyang's identity. Who exactly was this divine being? Unknowingly, the group of people walked in front of a lake, and there was a small island in the middle of the lake, with green trees and wild flowers everywhere, like a paradise isolated from the world. This place. Qin Feiyang looked up at the small island in the middle of the lake, and the dusty memories involuntarily surfaced in his mind. This was the place where he used to live, Soothing Lake. At that time, there was only him, young Master Hao, and Wang Yuer in the entire Soothing Lake. He still remembered that Wang Yuer had snatched a part of the soul refining technique, and in order to snatch back this part, he quietly hid in Wang Yuer's courtyard. Because he had activated the concealment technique at that time, Wang Yuer initially thought it was the ghost incident, and she was quite frightened. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but want to laugh. Qin Feiyang looked at Gongsun Bei and asked, "Is there anyone living in Soothing Lake now?" "No." Gongsun Bei shook his head. "Then let's go and take a look." Qin Feiyang took a step forward, walking on the surface of the lake, step by step toward the small island. The white-eyed wolf followed behind. "Brother Gongsun, why did you lie to him? Wang Yuer is clearly still living on this island." The spirit queen transmitted her voice. "His memories are here. If he knows that Wang Yuer is still here, will he go over? Definitely not. Besides, he and Wang Yuer should have come to an end." Gongsun Bei sighed inwardly. Come to an end? Didn't they already come to an end at Wang Yuanshan's funeral back then? Wang Ziqing frowned. Gongsun Bei transmitted his voice. "I'm referring to the knot in Yuer's heart." "Not in her heart." The few of them mumbled. "Yes, you all know about Yuer's state all these years. Although she looks very strong on the surface, there has always been a hidden pain in her heart. Otherwise she wouldn't have become so cold all these years. Therefore, when Qin Feiyang returns this time, I sincerely hope that he can help her open up the knot in her heart and walk out of the past." Gongsun Bei said. "I see." Wang Ziqing and the others were enlightened. "Let's go." Gongsun Bei smiled and slowly followed him. The other places in the main tower had more or less changed. Only this calm heart lake, apart from the flowers and trees, was the same as before. Even the courtyard and pavilion were the same as before. Qin Feiyang scanned the familiar things with a smile on his face. But suddenly, the smile on his face froze. He saw a woman on a blue stone by the lake in front of him. This woman was Wang Yuer. At this moment, Wang Yuer was sitting on the blue stone, hugging her legs with both hands and curling up together. She looked at the lake in front of her with a lost expression. "Where is she?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and turned to look at Gongsun Bei. Gongsun Bei smiled and didn't explain. He went back the way he came and retreated to the lakeshore. Wang Ziqing and the others looked at each other and turned back to the lake one after another. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Obviously, these guys did it on purpose. This is a little interesting. The white-eyed wolf chuckled and also turned around, leaving Qin Feiyang behind. He didn't even look back as he rushed to Gongsun Bei's side. "Brother Wolf, you're not angry with us?" Barbarian Bull looked at White-Eyed Wolf and asked, "Why would I be angry? To tell you the truth, I just hope that little Qin Zi can be enlightened as soon as possible." White-eyed Wolf smiled evilly. Everyone was stunned, then shook their heads and smiled helplessly. He was indeed a person who wanted to see the world in chaos. On the lake, Qin Feiyang looked at Gong Sunbei and the others helplessly, and then turned back to look at Wang Yu again. That lonely figure, and that melancholy look made one's heart ache. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, took off the mask on his face and walked over slowly. Although Qin Feiyang didn't hide it, Wang Yu still didn't notice his arrival. It could be seen that her mind was not here at all. Finally, Qin Feiyang walked in front of Wang Yu. But even so, Wang Yu still didn't notice him. It could be seen that she was in a mess now. As for the reason, it was obvious that it was because of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang sighed and walked to the side, standing on a blue stone and looking at the calm lake. He didn't disturb Wang Yu and kept silent. At this moment, the time and air here seemed to be still. What's going on? On the other side of the lake, White-eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and Wang Yu suspiciously. Why were they just standing there? There was no movement at all. I don't know where Yuer's mind is now. As for Qin Feiyang, Gong Sunbei shook his head and smiled bitterly. With this guy's EQ, he definitely doesn't know how to speak now, so he just stood there and kept silent. That's right, this blockhead's EQ is indeed worrying. Wang Ziqing nodded. Barbarian Bull, Viper, and the others also felt the same. Young master's talent, strength, means, and intelligence were impeccable, but his EQ was the only thing that made people helpless. Chapter 2799. Time passed quietly. Why? Why did you come back? I've been trying very hard to forget you. Hundreds of years have passed and I think I've almost forgotten you. But why did you appear in front of me now? Suddenly, Wang Yu murmured. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He lowered his head to look at Wang Yu, thinking that Wang Yu had noticed him and was talking to him. But when he looked at her, he realized that Wang Yu was talking to herself. Trying hard to forget me, Qin Feiyang muttered. That was to say, she hadn't forgotten him? But at Wang Yuanshan's funeral, hadn't they already made a clean break? And at that time, it was Wang Yu who said that she wanted to make a clean break with him. He thought that Wang Yu had really let go of him, but he didn't expect that she still had him in her heart. At this moment, Qin Feiyang finally understood what Gong Sunbei and the others meant. Wang Yu had a knot in her heart, and this knot had trapped her for hundreds of years. And he was the key to unlocking this knot in her heart. But then again, hundreds of years had passed, and she still hadn't really let go of him. This was really a silly woman. What did Qin Feiyang do to deserve a woman's love? At this moment, Qin Feiyang felt like a scumbag. A good woman had been hurt by him like this. Although all this was not his fault, he couldn't help blaming himself. Alas! Qin Feiyang sighed in a low voice. Although the sigh was very soft, it pulled Wang Yu back from her daze. Wang Yu quivered and immediately looked up at Qin Feiyang. Why are you here? Immediately, she stood up, looking very flustered and didn't dare to look into Qin Feiyang's eyes. I've been here for a long time. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. A long time? Wang Yu was stunned and hurriedly asked, just now. I heard what you said just now. Qin Feiyang nodded. I heard everything. She lowered her head and retreated, looking even more flustered as she tried to avoid Qin Feiyang's gaze. She was completely unaware that she was currently standing on top of the blue stone. If she continued to retreat, she would fall down. Be careful. Qin Feiyang saw it and hurriedly reminded him. Wang Yu looked at Qin Feiyang inexplicably and was still stepping back. In the end, she lost her footing and fell backwards with a cry of surprise. Seeing that the situation was not good, Qin Feiyang quickly stretched out his arm, grabbed Wang Yu's wrist, and gently pulled her back. Wang Yu was dumbfounded. She had never thought that she would have the chance to be in close contact with this man, even if he was just holding her wrist. At this moment, her heart was trembling, and her face was distressed. She forcefully shook off Qin Feiyang and shouted, Go immediately, don't appear in front of me again. No. Don't appear in front of me again, and I will never see you again. Was she running away because of love? Or was she running away because of hatred? In fact, Qin Feiyang knew it in his heart. He believed that Wang Yuer was also very clear in her heart. Qin Feiyang sighed secretly and said, "Calm down, okay?" Qin Feiyang's words completely ignited Wang Yuer's inner emotions. She roared, "Tell me, how can I calm down? I know that we can't go back to the past. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I hope that you can let go of yourself and live happily every day. I believe that not only me, but all the people who care about you, such as your parents in Gongsun Bay, hope that you can walk out of the past." Qin Feiyang said, "Live happily every day." Wang Yuer murmured, slowly squatted down, looked down at the lake and whispered, "How can I live happily every day when my heart is dead? My heart is dead." Qin Feiyang was instantly enraged. He stepped forward and grabbed Wang Yuer's shoulder. He shouted, "You don't live for others and you don't live for me. You live for yourself. Do you understand?" Wang Yuer looked up at Qin Feiyang's eyes and couldn't help but smile sadly. On one side is the family blood is thicker than water, and on the other side is the feelings that can't be let go. Can you understand this despair and powerlessness? In these hundreds of years, I have been forcing myself not to think about it, not to pay attention to it, to forget all of it. But is it really so easy to forget? The more I want to forget, the clearer I remember it. Every bit of it is like it happened yesterday. I want to use indifference to cover all of it, but who knows the real pain and helplessness in my heart? But this is not your fault, nor grandfather and father. I blame myself for being too incompetent. Wang Yuer shook her head, her face full of self-mockery. "I'm sorry. I really didn't expect to hurt you so deeply." Qin Feiyang sighed. He didn't expect that Wang Yuer's feelings for him were still as deep as back then. No, it was even deeper than back then. If he didn't stop it, he was afraid that she would continue to sink deeper and deeper. But how could he stop it? Feelings came from one's heart. Other than Wang Yuer herself, who could cut it off? If others tried to persuade her, it would probably be counterproductive. "You should go. Over the years, I have long been used to being alone. The more others persuade me, the more frustrated I feel. Let me be alone. I will be able to calm down after a while." Wang Yuer said in a low voice. But in her heart, she didn't want Qin Feiyang to leave. She longed for a warm embrace. But she knew that she couldn't do this. The figures of her grandfather, father, and mother appeared in her mind from time to time. Helplessness, despair, pain. They were like a curse, pressing down on her until she was about to suffocate and collapse. Qin Feiyang looked at her silently. Since all of this started because of him, let him end it completely so that both of them could be free. Phew. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, stepped forward, took Wang Yuer's hand and said, "Take me to see your grandfather and parents." "What do you want to do?" Wang Yuer was stunned and quickly asked. "Propose marriage," Qin Feiyang said. "What? Propose marriage?" Wang Yuer was stunned, her face full of astonishment. "That's right. If I miss such a good woman like you, it may be the regret of my life." Qin Feiyang lowered his head, looked at Wang Yuer, and said with a smile, "Regret?" Wang Yuer stared at Qin Feiyang in a daze. She didn't expect Qin Feiyang to suddenly say these words. Was she happy? Of course. There were countless nights in the past. She had yearned and fantasized about this scene. But in addition to being happy, she also had a trace of hesitation in her heart. It was too sudden and she was not prepared at all. Besides, would her grandfather, father, and mother agree? "Let's go." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Wang Yuer instinctively got up, but suddenly came back to her senses and shook off Qin Feiyang's hand again, shaking her head. "No. Why not?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "You're just sympathizing with me. Besides, my grandfather and the rest will not agree. In this life, we are destined to be the most familiar strangers." Wang Yuer shook her head. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "You think I'm sympathizing with you? Aren't you?" Wang Yuer asked. "No. I'm serious. Speaking of which, it's quite funny. I've always thought that I'm a responsible man. But now I realize that I'm not. Because if I'm really a responsible man, I won't leave you alone in the forgotten continent and face all the pressure alone." Although I've been in the ancient realm all these years, looking at you now, I can imagine how you've spent all these years. I really don't want to make you sad again. Let's go and propose marriage. If they don't agree, I'll snatch you away from them. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and looked at Wang Yuer with a gentle smile. Wang Yuer looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze and said, "Are these your heartfelt words?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. Hearing this, Wang Yuer fell silent. "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you unwilling?" Qin Feiyang asked. No. Of course I'm willing. I want to be with you even in my dreams, but I'm just afraid." Wang Yuer hurriedly shook her head. Qin Feiyang asked, "Afraid of your grandfather? Afraid of your parents?" "Yes." Wang Yuer nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at her deeply, and his divine sense rolled out, instantly enveloping the entire tower. Immediately after, 3 formless powers descended on 3 different locations in the main tower. The next moment, 3 figures appeared opposite Qin Feiyang and Wang Yuer. These 3 people were Wang Su and Wang Yuer's parents. Looking at the current Wang Su, Qin Feiyang felt emotional. He was sallow and emaciated, looking extremely sloppy. His white hair was messy, his eyes were dim and lifeless, and his entire body was filled with the smell of alcohol. Indeed, as Gong Sunbei said, he was no longer as elegant as before. Qin Feiyang. The 3 of them were suddenly detained here, and they were a little stunned. But immediately after, Wang Yuer's parents rushed to Wang Yuer's side, pushed Qin Feiyang away and shouted, "What are you doing here?" Qin Feiyang. Wang Su looked at Qin Feiyang, and his turbid eyes were filled with hatred. "I want to marry you, Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 of them and said, "What?" The 3 of them froze and couldn't help but turn to look at Wang Yuer. Wang Yuer lowered her head, not daring to look at the 3 of them. "Don't even think about it. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to touch my granddaughter?" Wang Su came back to his senses and immediately roared. "I know that you still hate me for killing Wang Yuanshan, but that's another matter. Can you bear to see you or suffer like this for the rest of her life?" Qin Feiyang said. Wang Su said angrily, "It's not us who made you sad, it's you." "Is that really the case? Think about it, if you didn't force her back then, would she choose to cut off all ties with me? Maybe we've already achieved the right result. In terms of age, you're all my elders. Logically speaking, you should be more sensible. But so many years have passed. What have you been doing? Not only did you not reflect on yourself, but you've been forcing the fault on me. The worst thing is that you've been pressuring you. She's your daughter and granddaughter. She's your closest kin. As parents and grandfathers, shouldn't you hope that she can live better and happier than anyone else?" Qin Feiyang said angrily. Chapter 2800. Shut up. Wang Su roared. His eyes were bloodshot as if he wanted to eat someone. "Did I touch your sore spot? Are you angry out of shame? Especially you. You used to be a highly respected old man. How did you become so unreasonable now?" Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Su and shouted coldly without mercy. Wang Su clenched his hands like a wild beast that was about to go crazy. "And you?" Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Yuer's parents again and said, "Which parent in the world doesn't want their children to live a good life? But what about you? Just because of the little hatred in your heart, you forcefully restrained Wang Yuer. Do you think this is good for her? Wrong. You are selfish. To put it more bluntly, you don't deserve to be parents at all." Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 coldly. To be honest, he was also full of anger in his heart. He had already done his best for Wang Yuanshan's matter, because he had let Wang Yuanshan go several times. It was Wang Yuanshan who was stubborn and kept challenging his bottom line. And the few times he let Wang Yuanshan go, it was for the sake of Wang Yuer and Wang Su. But the result? Not only did these people not appreciate it, but they also hated him to the core. What was this? Don't say that. Seeing Qin Feiyang scolding Wang Su and the other 2 like this, Wang Yuer was burning with anxiety. "I'm telling the truth. If they really love you, then they shouldn't impose their own wishes on you. Let's talk about it later. I, Qin Feiyang, have always had a clear conscience no matter who it is. I never regret killing Wang Yuanshan. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Su and the other two and said, "If you insist on blaming me, then I can only say that I overestimated you in the past." The three of them looked sullen. "That's all I have to say. I don't want to say anything more. I'll take Yuer away." Qin Feiyang grabbed Wang Yuer and stepped into the air. Wang Yuer's mother quickly stood in front of Qin Feiyang and said angrily, "What right do you have to take Yuer away?" "Why? Just because of what she has done for me. I can't let her continue to suffer like this. Since you can't take care of her, then I will take care of her," Qin Feiyang said with no expression. "You don't go too far." Wang Su gritted his teeth as he stared at Qin Feiyang. "It's not that I'm bullying you. You're the ones who have placed your faces on the ground and trampled on them." Wang Su was so angry that he was out of breath. Of course. Whether Wang Yuer's heart knot could be untied or not depended on now. In his heart, Wang Yuer had always been like a sister. So seeing Wang Yuer like this all day, he also felt very sad. Once, he also tried to enlighten her, but it was to no avail. If Wang Yuer and Qin Feiyang could really be together, it would naturally be the most perfect ending. But if they couldn't be together, as long as she could untie the knot in her heart for many years and let her accept and face all this calmly, it would be a good ending. "Please step aside." Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Yuer's mother and said. Looking at Qin Feiyang, Wang Yuer's mother had some fear in her eyes. Although Qin Feiyang was a junior, she was no match for him in terms of means and strength. She couldn't help but look at Wang Yuer. Since she didn't dare to do anything to Qin Feiyang, she could only put pressure on Wang Yuer. Wang Yuer lowered her head, and her painful face was full of struggle. Qin Feiyang sighed and said, "I'm sorry to put you in a dilemma again." Wang Yuer looked up at Qin Feiyang, her face full of tears. Qin Feiyang raised his hand and gently wiped away Wang Yuer's tears. Then he looked at Wang Su and the other two and said, "Really, don't force her anymore. If there's anything, just come at me." "Okay, I'll come at you." Wang Su couldn't bear it anymore. With a roar, he charged at Qin Feiyang like a wild beast, with murderous intent all over his body. "Grandpa." Wang Yuer's face suddenly changed. "Don't worry." Qin Feiyang smiled at Wang Yuer. But Wang Yuer wasn't worried about him. She was worried about Wang Su. Although she didn't know Qin Feiyang's current cultivation, she could imagine that with Qin Feiyang's talent, it must be far better than before. In the past, Wang Su was no match for Qin Feiyang, let alone now. This woman. Qin Feiyang shook his head and looked up at Wang Su, with a cold light flashing in his eyes. "Don't hurt my grandpa, please." Wang Yuer grabbed Qin Feiyang's arm and begged. "Then aren't you afraid that he will hurt me?" Qin Feiyang asked without looking back. "Hurt you?" Wang Yuer was slightly taken aback. She lowered her head and muttered, "With your strength, how can grandpa hurt you?" Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. An aura emerged and gently pushed Wang Yuer away. Just by this aura, Wang Yuer judged that her grandpa's strength was not at the same level as Qin Feiyang at all. The worry in her heart couldn't help but grow stronger. Wang Yuer's parents were also very nervous. They watched Qin Feiyang grow up, so they were very clear about Qin Feiyang's character. If others didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. If he was angered, even if the emperor was standing in front of him, he would dare to kill him. They were afraid that Qin Feiyang would be angry and have the intention to kill the old master. This is a bit bad. On the other side, the Spirit Queen whispered, "Yes, who doesn't know the temper of the young master?" Wang Yuanshan's matter back then had already given Wang Su and Wang Yuer enough face. After so many years, Wang Su still refuses to let go. With the young master's character, I'm afraid he will really be angry. Viper murmured. Gong Sunbei was also a little worried. Would they end up making a fool of themselves? In the blink of an eye, Wang Su had already rushed to the front of Qin Feiyang. His eyes were bloodshot. Obviously, he had lost his mind. At this moment, everyone's heart was in their throat. However, everyone thought that Qin Feiyang would be angry and have the intention to kill, but he didn't show any signs of making a move. Bang! Wang Su slapped on Qin Feiyang's chest. Puff! Qin Feiyang spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot, and his whole body retreated continuously. Everyone froze there. He didn't make a move? Was this Qin Feiyang? Was Qin Feiyang the kind of person who would stand there and take a beating? No. The white-eyed wolf frowned. What's wrong? Wang Zicheng was surprised. With little Qin Zi's cultivation, even if he stands still, Wang Su can't hurt him at all. But now he is spitting out blood. The white-eyed wolf said in disbelief. Hearing this, they couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang again. Scoundrel. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf cursed. What now? Wang Zicheng and the others were taken aback by the white-eyed wolf. He must have given up all his defense. Otherwise, how could he be injured? The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Gave up all his defense? They were slightly stunned. Viper asked suspiciously. Why did young master do this? How would I know? The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Viper smiled embarrassedly. Gong Sunbei glanced at the white-eyed wolf, looked up at Qin Feiyang, and then looked at Wang Yu'er. There was a trace of understanding in his eyes. There was also a trace of gratitude on his face. He murmured, "Thank you." Obviously, Gong Sunbei had already noticed Qin Feiyang's intention. Wang Su was also stunned by Qin Feiyang's attitude of not fighting back, but he didn't restrain himself because of this. He punched at Qin Feiyang again. Puff. Qin Feiyang spat out another mouthful of blood, and took a few steps back. How could this be? Why didn't he fight back? Wang Yu'er murmured. Wang Yu'er's parents also looked confused. Was this really Qin Feiyang? Was he really not an imposter? They had serious doubts, because this was too different from what they had expected. Do you think I will let you go if you don't fight back? No, absolutely not. Blood for blood. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Wang Su roared in the sky. His face was full of hatred. With a clang, a combat sword appeared. Grandpa, stop. Wang Yu'er's face changed drastically. She quickly shouted. But seeing this, her parents immediately stepped forward and pulled Wang Yu'er from both sides. Father, mother, let go. If this goes on, Qin Feiyang will be killed by Grandpa. Wang Yu'er roared. He deserves to die. Wang Yu'er's father snorted coldly. Father. Wang Yu'er's body trembled and her face turned pale. Wang Su. I will destroy your Sea of Qi first. With a sword he went straight to Qin Feiyang's Sea of Qi. Puff. All of a sudden, blood suddenly appeared. The combat sword sank into Qin Feiyang's Sea of Qi, which was shattered on the spot. What the hell is this bastard doing? The white-eyed wolf frowned. How could an ordinary combat sword pierce Qin Feiyang's Sea of Qi? Wasn't he giving up all his defense? One had to know. Qin Feiyang was not only at the 9th heaven realm, but his body had also been tempered by heaven tribulation, let alone an ordinary battle sword. Even an ordinary divine artifact would not be able to harm Qin Feiyang in the slightest. The white-eyed wolf couldn't figure out why Qin Feiyang gave up his defense and let Wang Su do whatever he wanted. Why didn't he fight back? Wang Yu'er's parents looked at each other when they saw this. Who didn't know the importance of the Sea of Qi? How could Qin Feiyang not fight back when his Sea of Qi was shattered? It was too abnormal. Grandpa. No, I beg you, please stop. But Wang Yu'er burst into tears and kept shouting at Wang Su. Her voice was almost hoarse. However, Wang Su turned a deaf ear to her. He raised his combat sword and chopped at Qin Feiyang's left hand again, his eyes full of madness. Crack. Qin Feiyang's left arm broke on the spot and blood gushed out. No. Grandpa, I beg you, please stop. Qin Feiyang, why didn't you fight back? At least hide. Wang Yu'er was already shouting herself hoarse and her face was full of pain. God, what did I do wrong? Why did you torture me like this? Chapter 2801. I really didn't expect that you'd really stand here and let me kill you. However, if you think this will make me sympathize with you, then you're wrong. Now I'll send you to hell. Wang Su didn't notice the miserable Wang Yu'er at all. His expression was getting crazier as the battle sword in his hand went straight for Qin Feiyang's glabella. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Su indifferently. He couldn't help but hate Wang Su in his heart. In the past, although Wang Su wanted to kill him, he never hated Wang Su at all. In fact, he even had a respectful attitude. But at this moment, Looking at the stubborn Wang Su, the respect in his heart was gone. Boom! Wang Su's battle sword was about to enter Qin Feiyang's glabella, but at this moment, a terrifying aura erupted. But this wasn't Qin Feiyang's aura. It was Wang Yu, and there was a destructive wave in this aura. Wang Su shuddered and hurriedly looked at Wang Yu. This was because this wasn't an ordinary aura, but a self-explosion wave. Yu, what are you doing? Wang Yu's parents also had a change of expression and hurriedly looked at Wang Yu and shouted. Qin Feiyang also slowly turned to look at Wang Yu. At this moment, Wang Yu stood in the void, a destructive aura rolling in all directions. The lake water tumbled and huge waves surged. The entire calming lake was trembling. Yu, don't do anything stupid. Seeing this scene, Wang Su dropped the battle sword in his hand and hurriedly rushed towards Wang Yu. It's really enough. I'm really tired too. Grandpa, mother, father. Let me go. Wang Yu looked at the three of them and said. Yu, stop self-explosion. Everything can be discussed. Wang Yu's mother was extremely anxious. Promise me first, let go of your hatred. Although great-grandfather's death makes you very sad, it's not Qin Feiyang's fault in the first place. Why do you have to push the blame to him? You guys weren't so unreasonable in the past. Why have you all become like this now? Do you think that Qin Feiyang is standing there without moving because of guilt or uneasiness? No. He did it for me. He didn't want to see me continue to fall like this. He wanted to use this to wake me up. You all know his personality, and you are even more aware of his strength and methods. If it wasn't for me, do you all think that you would still be alive? He has already done enough for our family. Don't you understand? I just want to ask you, what do you want? Are you really going to force me to my death before you're willing to give up? Wang Yu roared. Wang Yu's mother nodded repeatedly and said, Yes, 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 you're right. You're right. Stop it quickly. If you die, how can I live in the future? That's right. Yu, stop. We promise you that we won't look for Qin Feiyang again. We won't force you again. Really? Take it as father begging you, don't do anything stupid. Her father also said repeatedly. Wang Yu glanced at the two of them, then looked at Wang Su and said, Grandpa, what about you? Wang Su's face was gloomy. Father, what are you still hesitating for? Say it quickly. Do you really want to see Yu die in front of you? Wang Yu's parents urged. As an outsider, I really want to say a few words. Sister Yu has really been living too hard these years. On one side is the person she wants to entrust her life to. On the other side is the person closest to her. If Wang Yuanshan's death is really Qin Feiyang's fault, then I won't say anything about what you're doing. I'll even support you. But this matter is Wang Yuanshan's fault from the beginning to the end. For such a person, you force Sister Yu to become like this. Please ask yourselves, are you really a qualified father, a qualified mother, and a qualified grandfather? While you hate Qin Feiyang, why don't you reflect on yourself? Especially you, Wang Su. Back then, you were also at the miracle and knew everything. Ask yourself with your conscience, is this really Qin Feiyang's fault? Gong Sunbei sighed softly and walked over step by step. Hearing these words, Wang Su and the other two were silent, and they finally realized the harm to Wang Yu. Yu, stop. Gong Sunbei walked to Wang Yu and smiled. Brother Gongsun. Wang Yu's momentum dissipated, and then she lay in Gong Sunbei's arms and cried bitterly. Don't cry. Everything will be fine. Gong Sunbei patted Wang Yu's shoulder and comforted her softly. Little Qinzi, are you stupid? Just these small fries. I can send them to the Western Paradise with a flick of my finger, and they even made her like this. I think you're just itching for a beating. White-Eyed Wolf also flew over and scolded Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. What are you laughing at? Just looking at your brother makes me angry. White-Eyed Wolf glared at him and said angrily, Why aren't you taking the Divine Life Pill? Qin Feiyang shook his head, took out a Divine Life Pill and a Spiritual Sea Pill, and threw them into his mouth. His broken sea of qi and broken arm immediately began to repair. White-Eyed Wolf looked at Wang Su with an extremely unfriendly look and said, Have you vented enough? Hearing White-Eyed Wolf's tone, Wang Zicheng and the other's eyelids suddenly twitched. This brother wolf was not as easy to talk to as the young master. Wang Su looked at White-Eyed Wolf, his eyes flashing coldly. Boom. A monstrous ferocious aura suddenly rushed out of White-Eyed Wolf's body, and instantly enveloped Wang Su and the other two. The three immediately felt a fatal crisis in their hearts. Enough. Qin Feiyang patted White-Eyed Wolf's head. I didn't say I was going to kill them. I just wanted to show them our current strength. White-Eyed Wolf snorted and looked at the three. With your poor cultivation, I can kill you thousands of times with just a breath. Speaking of this, White-Eyed Wolf paused and sneered. So not to mention that little Qin Zi is right. Even if he is wrong, you can only bear with it. After that, White-Eyed Wolf withdrew his ferocious aura, and looked at the three with disdain in his eyes. Seeing this, Wang Zicheng and the others couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Brother Wolf didn't go crazy, otherwise who could stop him? Although White-Eyed Wolf's words were very strong and domineering, Wang Su and the other two didn't dare to do anything, because White-Eyed Wolf's ferocious aura had almost cast a shadow on them. Qin Feiyang looked at the three and shook his head. As you said, you all know me. I have been very polite to you, so I also hope this matter will end here. Wang Su was silent. Wang Yuer's parents looked at each other, and also fell silent. In fact, the reason is very simple. You hate me and even want to kill me, but it won't affect me at all, because I can completely ignore it. But I hope that Yuer can live a happier, more relaxed and more free life. You are all her dearest people. If you really love her, you should think more about her. Qin Feiyang said. Alas! Hearing this, Wang Yuer's mother looked at Wang Yuer, who was crying in Gongsun Bei's arms, and couldn't help but sigh and say, Forget it, forget it. Yes. Wang Yuer's father also nodded. Over the years, they didn't realize that some inadvertent restrictions and some self-righteous decisions, which they thought were for their daughter's good, had caused so much harm to her. How could they make up for this harm? Daughter, I'm sorry. We've never thought about your feelings and made you suffer so much. Don't worry, we won't force you to do anything in the future. Even if you really get together with Qin Feiyang, we won't stop you. As long as you're happy and happy. The couple walked behind Wang Yuer, their eyes full of self-blame and guilt. Mother, father. Wang Yuer's delicate body trembled, and she turned to look at the two of them. Her tears were even more uncontrollable. Hundreds of years. Although a few hundred years was just a blink of an eye to cultivators, to her, every day felt like a year. And now it was finally over. You've suffered all these years. The woman raised her hand and tidied up the messy hair on Wang Yuer's forehead. No, no. Wang Yuer shook her head and threw herself into her mother's arms, crying nonstop. But this time was different. This time, it was tears of joy, tears of relief. Wang Zicheng looked at Wang Su and said with a smile, Old Master Wang, it's time for you to say something. After all, you're the head of the family. And you've seen how happy Yuer is now. I believe you don't want to see her again. Return to your previous state. Let us see your demeanor and elegance back then. We've always believed that you're a sensible old man. Barbarian Bull, and the others also spoke. Wang Su looked at everyone present. Not only Wang Zicheng and the others, but even Gongsun Bei and Wang Yuer's parents looked at Wang Su encouragingly. Wang Su, don't make us look down on you. The monkey-faced old man and the hook-nosed old man, who had been silent, also spoke at this time. Wang Su looked at the two of them, then at everyone, and finally at Wang Yuer. Wang Yuer also looked at him with anticipation. Wang Su took a deep breath and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. All right, let's end this matter here. But remember, I'm not doing this because I'm afraid of you. I'm doing this for Yuer's sake. Qin Feiyang smiled. Was this important? Of course not. As long as these grudges could be resolved and Wang Yuer could be reborn. And, if you want to get married, it'll never happen unless I'm dead. After saying that, Wang Su turned around and left without looking back. Everything is fine now. Why are you still stopping them? If you want me, we should immediately choose an auspicious day and hold their marriage. Maybe before we leave, we can even give birth to a fat boy for you. The White-Eyed Wolf was displeased. What are you shouting for? Qin Feiyang secretly glared at it. The White-Eyed Wolf said in surprise, Didn't you say that you wanted to propose marriage? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Gong Sunbei secretly laughed. Brother Wolf, you don't understand this. What? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. The marriage proposal is just a fuse used to ignite the anger of Wang Su and the others. Gong Sunbei transmitted his voice. Fuse. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. That's right. Wang Su and the others hate Qin Feiyang to begin with. How will they react when Qin Feiyang suddenly proposes to marry you? They'll definitely be very angry. If they're angry, they'll naturally lose control and attack Qin Feiyang. And this is Qin Feiyang's purpose. He wants to make use of this to make you's inner emotions completely erupt. After all, has always been deeply in love with Qin Feiyang. Seeing Qin Feiyang being beaten up like this, she definitely can't control herself. And the result is as you saw, using self-destruction to threaten Wang Su and the other two. Let's talk about Wang Su and the other two. What do they care about the most? Of course it's you. Or can they be indifferent when they see you or self-destruct? Definitely not. They'll stop and persuade her. At this time, Yor will also say what she's been hiding in her heart. In the end, when all of us stand out to help persuade them, they can't help but reflect on themselves. Why did they come to this point today? As long as they reflect, they'll naturally be able to find the root of the problem and realize the harm they've caused to you or over the years. Then this grudge can be resolved. Gong Sunbei explained secretly. I see. The white-eyed wolf suddenly understood and asked suspiciously. Wait, why do you say it can be resolved? Of course, this depends on Wang Su and the other two. If they insist on having their own way and hate Qin Feiyang to the end, it naturally can't be resolved. Fortunately, the three of them haven't been blinded by hatred and let all of this finally come to an end. Gong Sunbei smiled with relief. This was not only a knot in Wang Yu's heart but also in his. He had always regarded Wang Yu as his younger sister. Seeing Wang Yu getting more and more depressed, he naturally felt uncomfortable in his heart. Now that Wang Yu was free, of course he was relieved. Chapter 2802. Dust settled. White-eyed wolf pursed his lips and said, What kind of dust settled? Only when they get married will it really be dust settled. Marriage. Gong Sunbei looked at Qin Feiyang and Wang Yu. If they could really get married, it would really be a perfect ending. However, even if Wang Su agreed, Qin Feiyang probably wouldn't have this idea. Although Qin Feiyang had tried to accept you back then and might have some feelings for her in his heart. Hundreds of years had passed. Hundreds of years were enough for Qin Feiyang to forget this little bit of feelings. As expected, Qin Feiyang's current attitude towards you should only be that of a pure friend. So it was almost impossible for them to get married. He only hoped that you wouldn't take Qin Feiyang's marriage proposal too seriously. Thinking of this, Gong Sunbei was inexplicably worried again. If you took it seriously, wouldn't Qin Feiyang be in a dilemma? If Qin Feiyang refused, wouldn't it hurt you again? Thinking about it carefully, he felt that this matter seemed to have become complicated again. Wang Zicheng and the others noticed Gong Sunbei's expression at this moment and asked suspiciously, What are you thinking about? You look uneasy. Gong Sunbei sighed softly and secretly expressed his worries. Don't say it. There's really this possibility. Wang Zicheng and the others couldn't help but shudder when they heard this. At the same time, Wang Yu's parents also looked at Wang Yu worriedly. But the problem they were worried about was different from the problem Gong Sunbei and the others were worried about. They were worried about Wang Su's attitude. Wang Su directly said that the two were not allowed to get married unless he died. This undoubtedly cut off Wang Yu's thoughts. Of course, they knew their daughter. She had a soft spot for Qin Feiyang and could even be described as infatuation. Now that Wang Su said this, they were worried that their daughter would take things too hard and do something stupid. In fact, as parents, they didn't intend to object now, as long as their daughter liked it. But facing Wang Su, they had no choice. Wang Yu looked at her parents and smiled. Mother, father, you don't have to worry. The couple was stunned. At this moment, the smile on his daughter's face was as bright as when she was young. Obviously, His daughter had already untied the knot in her heart and regained a new life. But that's not right. Hearing Wang Su's words, shouldn't his daughter be discouraged and sad? Why did it seem like he didn't care at all? Wang Yuer smiled at the couple and then looked at Qin Feiyang. The smile on her face was like a spring breeze. Her entire body was glowing, and her charm was even greater than before. This was the real Wang Yuer. One was devastatingly beautiful, while the other was an enchantress. However, Qin Feiyang did not have any evil thoughts in his heart. Indeed, as Gong Sunbei had thought, after hundreds of years, he only had friendship with Wang Yuer now. Wang Yuer suddenly said, "Do you think I will pester you?" Qin Feiyang was astonished. Isn't this too direct? If I take your words seriously, and if my grandfather doesn't object, will you really marry me? Wang Yuer asked. Qin Feiyang said with a wry smile, "You're asking a question that will kill you." Wang Yuer couldn't help laughing at the moment. After thinking for a while, she said, "Well, I'll change a question that's easier to answer. Have you ever liked me before?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and nodded. Yes. He didn't want to say something against his will. Although he had been moved by Wang Yuer at first, as time went by, he did have feelings for Wang Yuer in his heart. After all, love grows with time. Besides, in the face of such a good woman, even a stubborn stone would be moved. Is there really one? Wang Yuer asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's enough. Let's get along like good friends in the future. Wang Yuer smiled. Okay. A smile also appeared on Qin Feiyang's face. Perhaps in the eyes of White-Eyed Wolf, this ending was not good, but in his opinion, there was nothing better. Because whether it was Wang Yuer or himself, they could be completely free from this love tribulation. Gong Sunbei looked at Qin Feiyang and asked with a smile, "Then let's go." Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, looked at Wang Yuer and said with a smile, "Let's meet at Longfeng House tonight. Do you have time?" Wang Yuer said, "If you invite me, I'll definitely go." Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and said, "Well, I officially invite you. Let's talk about it tonight. After all, I'm a busy man now. It depends on whether I have time or not." Wang Yuer said playfully. Qin Feiyang couldn't help laughing, nodded to Wang Yuer's parents with a smile, and then turned to leave. Gong Sunbei and the others looked at each other, and turned to follow with smiles on their faces. Looking at the disappearing figures of the group, Wang Yuer's parents sighed for a moment. Then, the two of them looked at Wang Yuer and asked, "Daughter, are you really okay?" "I'm really fine. After this incident, I've thought it through. Feelings can't be forced. Although I like him, he doesn't like me. If we force ourselves to be together, we'll both get hurt in the end. Since that's the case, why should I force it? It's better to open up and bless him to find his true happiness." Wang Yuer said. Hearing this, the couple's hearts that had been hanging in the air finally relaxed. Wang Yuer looked up at the sky and said, "Father, Mother, I want to go out for a walk." "Where to?" The couple was stunned. "All these years, I've been closing myself off and haven't seen the outside world. Now that the knot in my heart has been untied, I want to go out and take a look." "Where to?" "I don't know either. Wherever I go, I'll go." Wang Yuer laughed. "It's good to go out for a walk. However, you can't stay outside for too long. After all, you're now the hall master of the law enforcement hall, and have a heavy responsibility." The couple said. "The hall master of the law enforcement hall?" Wang Yuer whispered and laughed. "After I leave, you can look for Brother Gongsun and ask him to choose another hall master." "What? Choose another one? What do you mean?" The couple was bewildered. "It's not easy to be free. Of course, I have to let myself relax completely. We'll talk about it later. Status and power have never been what I'm after." Wang Yuer smiled faintly. The couple looked at each other and nodded with a smile. "All right, as long as you're happy." Back to Qin Feiyang. After leaving Calming Lake, he found a place to wash off the bloodstains on his body and put on a clean set of clothes. He felt refreshed. Gong Sunbei looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Thank you." "Thank me?" Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, "Thank me for what?" Thank you for helping Sister Yuer untie the knot in her heart, Gong Sunbei said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, this matter happened because of me. If there's anyone to thank, I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for taking care of her all these years. I see her as my sister. It's my duty to take care of her. Gong Sunbei shook his head. Can you guys not be so polite? She's not an outsider. Wang Zicheng was speechless. Haha. Qin Feiyang and Gong Sunbei looked at each other and could not help but laugh. After strolling for a while, Qin Feiyang suddenly asked, how's Pei now? Pretty good. And all these years, with his own ability, he has managed the Divine Python tribe well. Excluding the Sky Tiger tribe, the current Divine Python tribe is already the strongest tribe on the Forgotten Continent. Gong Sunbei said. It's all within my expectations. Qin Feiyang smiled. He had always admired Pei Yi and expected that this person would definitely have amazing achievements. As for the Sky Tiger tribe, needless to say, Yan Wei used to be his subordinate, and because of this, the Sky Tiger tribe's status rose. No matter how strong the other tribes were, they would not dare to be presumptuous in front of the Sky Tiger tribe. To be honest, I want to kidnap this kid to the main tower now. If he joins, I believe that the main tower will definitely become stronger in the future. Gong Sunbei smiled. That shouldn't be possible. After all, the Divine Python tribe is his home. Qin Feiyang said. That's what I'm thinking. But sooner or later, we have to find time to talk to him. Gong Sunbei said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, why don't we go and see him now? Now, Gong Sunbei was stunned. Although I know many people on the Forgotten Continent, there are only a few who left the deepest impression. Pei Yi is one of them. It's rare for me to come back. I have to go and see this old friend. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right then. Gong Sunbei opened a teleportation gate, and a group of people filed in. The next moment, they descended above a mountain range. In the mountains, ancient trees towered into the sky and ferocious beasts ran rampant. There was a huge city in front that emitted an ancient aura. That was the Divine Python tribe. The monkey-faced old man said. If you don't want to cause a commotion, let Wang Zicheng go and get Pei Yi here. Why me? I'm not an errand boy. Wang Zicheng was displeased. You have a problem with me just going to get Pei Yi? The monkey-faced old man was stunned. Of course. Viper is here and so is Barbarian Bull. Why don't you let them go? Old man, do you think I'm easy to bully? Wang Zicheng said angrily. The monkey-faced old man was speechless. Calling someone over is bullying me? What logic is this? You have so many opinions? Seems like I haven't taught you a lesson in a long time. You're itching for a beating. The white-eyed wolf went forward and slapped him with his paw. There was no suspense. Wang Zicheng wailed and flew towards the Divine Python tribe like a shooting star. When Big Barbarian Bull and the rest saw this scene, they all had gloating faces. Why don't you take a look at who's here? How dare you be so arrogant? You're just asking for it. You're just relying on the fact that you're stronger than me. Just you wait. Once I catch up to you and surpass you, I'll teach you a lesson. Wang Zicheng muttered under his breath, his face full of displeasure. Chapter 2803. Whoosh. Soon. Wang Zicheng flew out of the Divine Python tribe with a young man. The man was handsome and looked about 25 or 26 years old. He was wearing a white robe and his figure was tall and straight, exuding an elegant aura. That's right. He was Pei Yi. A few hundred years had passed. His aura was even more outstanding. No matter where he was the brightest star. But at this moment, Pei Yi looked at Wang Zicheng with a trace of doubt and asked, who are you going to see? Why are you being so mysterious? You'll know soon. Wang Zicheng then pointed to the mountain in front and said, look, they're all there. Pei Yi looked up and saw Qin Feiyang, and the others standing at the edge of the cliff. However, at this moment, Qin Feiyang turned around and could only see their backs. Besides, he had completely concealed his aura. The white-eyed wolf was nowhere to be seen. Where was he hiding? Looking at Gong Sunbei, the monkey-faced old man, the hook-nosed old man, and the bull. Pei Yi's eyes were full of shock. What's going on? The big shots of the main pagoda actually came to the divine python tribe? Pei Yi hurriedly flew over and landed in front of Gongsun Bei. He looked at Qin Feiyang's back view and felt that it seemed a little familiar. However, he didn't think too much about it and hurriedly looked at Gongsun Bei and asked, "Brother Gongsun, did something big happen?" Something big? Gongsun Bei was stunned. Otherwise, why would you all come to the divine python tribe and be so mysterious? Pei Yi said. Gongsun Bei smiled secretly and nodded with an extremely serious expression. There is indeed something big. Pei Yi's heart skipped a beat and he asked in a deep voice, "What is it?" "Someone wants to see you. This person is not to be trifled with and seems to have a feud with you," Gongsun Bei said. Barbarian Bull and the others couldn't help but blush when they saw Gongsun Bei speaking as if he was telling the truth. "See me?" Pei Yi was slightly stunned and asked, "Who?" "Him." Gongsun Bei pointed at Qin Feiyang. Pei Yi looked at Qin Feiyang again, only to find that he did look rather familiar. "Brother Pei, I'm the one who's here to cause trouble for you." Qin Feiyang chuckled and turned around slowly to look at Pei Yi. Ugh. Staring at Qin Feiyang's face, Pei Yi was dumbfounded. "Brat, take this." It was also at this moment. The white-eyed wolf hollered coldly and leaped out from a bush on the mountainside. It swiped its paw at Pei Yi. Pei Yi frantically turned to look at her, only to be dumbfounded. What was going on? If he remembered correctly, they seemed to be Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. But didn't they go to the ancient realm long ago? Although white-eyed wolf seemed menacing, he suddenly braked when he was near Pei Yi and draped his arm around Pei Yi's neck. He chuckled and said, "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" You guys." Pei Yi glanced at white-eyed wolf and then looked at Qin Feiyang, who was standing opposite him. He could not react at all. "Why do all of you have this reaction when you see us? I know you miss us very much, but can't you calm down?" The white-eyed wolf was helpless. "This is not a matter of being calm. You guys appeared too suddenly. At least let us know in advance." Pei Yi smiled bitterly and looked at Gongsun Bei and the others. He said helplessly, "And you guys, you actually joined forces to scare me." How could he remain calm when he suddenly saw his old friends whom he had not seen for years standing in front of him? Haha. Gongsun Bei and the others could not help but laugh. "How is it? Are you doing well now?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Pei Yi took a deep breath and said with a smile, "Thanks to you, everything is fine." "What has it got to do with me?" Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Of course it has something to do with me. We're friends. Because of this, Brother Gongsun, as the Chief Tower Master, will naturally take special care of the Divine Python tribe." Pei Yi smiled. "Don't say that. If outsiders hear this, they'll think that I'm giving special treatment." Gongsun Bei shook his head and smiled. Haha. Pei Yi laughed and looked at Qin Feiyang. He asked, "Why did you come back?" "After so many years, I missed you guys, so I came back to visit." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Come back to visit?" Pei Yi was slightly stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and asked, "In other words, you guys are still going to leave?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "All right. For major figures like you, Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent aren't big enough for you." Pei Yi shook his head and smiled. "You're making fun of us. What big shots? We're just ordinary people. I envy you. You're carefree and carefree. When you're free, you can even get together with a group of old friends to drink tea and chat. How great is that?" Qin Feiyang said. "There's nothing to be envious about, because that's how life is. When you're envious of others, others are also envious of you. Besides, our situations and pursuits are different. Naturally, the paths we take are different." Pei Yi smiled. "That's true." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Are the two of you interesting? It's not easy for you guys to get together. Why are you guys talking about such incomprehensible principles?" The white-eyed wolf glared at the two of them. Haha. Qin Feiyang and Gongsun Bei looked at each other and laughed. Pei Yi asked, "How about it? Shall we take a walk in the tribe?" "Forget it, I don't want to cause a stir." Qin Feiyong waved his hand. What should we do then? I still want to talk to you and have a few drinks. Pei Yi said. We'll have a gathering at Longfeng House tonight. Let's have a few drinks then. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. So you've already made plans? Pei Yi nodded in realization. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. That's why I specially came to invite you. I wonder if Brother Pei will do me the honor? You rascal. Pei Yi shook his head and laughed. Even if he didn't, he would still take the initiative to visit Qin Feiyong when he knew that he would be at Longfeng House tonight. This was because he had always treated Qin Feiyong as a true friend, one that didn't have any beneficial relationship with him. This kind of friend was the purest. All right then, we'll go to other places and wait for you at Longfeng House tonight. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Okay. Pei Yi nodded. Also, Qin Feiyong said again. Go ahead. Pei Yi smiled. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and a crystal meridian and a spirit meridian appeared. What's this? Pei Yi was surprised. This is a crystal meridian and a spirit meridian. It'll be of great help to your cultivation. Take it as a token of appreciation between friends. Don't mind. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Mind. Pei Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. How can I mind what you give me? However, although I don't know what the crystal meridian and spirit meridian are for, I can tell at a glance that they're not ordinary items. I'm really a little. Before Pei Yi could finish, Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said with a smile, since we're friends, don't stand on ceremony with me. Besides, I've already given you 10 crystal meridian and spirit meridian. Since you've already said so, if I still refuse, I'll seem too pretentious. Okay, then I'll accept it. Pei Yi nodded. There's more. Qin Feiyong took out a legendary divine artifact and a supreme divine art. He smiled and said, this is for you too. This. Pei Yi looked at the divine art and divine artifact and said, I'm a little flattered that you're giving me these gifts as soon as you come back. Enough. Don't be like a girl. This is a legendary divine artifact and a supreme divine artifact. It's more than enough to be the most precious treasure of the divine python tribe. White-Eyed Wolf said. Okay. Pei Yi nodded and took the divine artifact and the divine art. He said with a smile. I won't say any words of gratitude. I'll keep it in mind. Qin Feiyong smiled and said. Also, when I leave, I'll leave behind all the pills that can unlock the door of potential. When the time comes, you can go to the Great Qin Empire and get them from my father. Then I definitely won't stand on ceremony. Pei Yi smiled. Pei Yi's door of potential was not fully opened because Qin Feiyong couldn't open the last few pages of the Pill Sutra at that time. Okay, let's meet again tonight. Qin Feiyong said. Okay. Pei Yi nodded. Gong Sunbei looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, then where are we going next? Let's go to the city, but let's keep a low profile and not cause a sensation. Qin Feiyong said. Gong Sunbei smiled and said, then let's all change our appearances. Let's go. All of a sudden, everyone took out the illusory pills, including the monkey-faced old man and the hook-nosed old man. After changing their appearances, the group opened the portal and headed to the Divine City. The Divine City was the largest city in the Central Divine Kingdom. For example, the Trading Pavilion and the Dragon Phoenix House were all located in the Divine City. After Qin Feiyong and the others left, Pei Yi shook his head and said with a smile, I didn't expect that guy to come back. Then, he raised his head and looked at the crystal vein and spirit vein floating in the void, his eyes full of curiosity. Then, he looked at the legendary divine artifact again. Legendary? Was it very strong? He was curious and dripped blood on it to claim ownership. Then he grabbed it in his hand and tried to swing it at the mountains and rivers in front of him. Boom. Crack. The mountains and rivers in front of him immediately began to collapse and sink. It was like a scene of doomsday. Pei Yi was greatly taken aback by the sight. This was too terrifying. It had such power even before it was awakened. If it was awakened, wouldn't it destroy the world? Patriarch, what's going on? The commotion also alarmed the people of the Divine Python tribe. A group of people flew out, thinking that it was a strong enemy, But when they saw that only Pei was there, they were all puzzled. It's okay, it's okay. Pei hurriedly waved his hand, looked down at the divine artifact in his hand, and muttered, "This is really a big gift." To be honest, although he had known Qin Feiyang for many years, he had never really helped Qin Feiyang with anything. In other words, the relationship between the two of them was very ordinary. If it was someone else, they could only be considered as a very ordinary friend at most. But Qin Feiyang first gave him the pill to unlock the door of potential, and now he gave him these divine artifacts. Their friendship was really higher than the sky and thicker than the earth. It was rare to have such a close friend in life. This friendship must be cherished. Chapter 2804. Although the Divine City had changed a bit over the years, they could still find familiar shadows in some places. Qin Feiyang and his group were like ordinary people. They walked on the streets of the Divine City and looked at their surroundings. Don't say it. Although we've been in the Central Divine Kingdom for so many years and have been to the Divine City countless times, we always came and went in a hurry. This is the first time we've observed the Divine City so carefully. It's really a different scenery. The bull smiled. Every place has a different scenery, but we don't pay attention to it. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. There are too many things to do in life. Who has time to pay attention to these things? The monkey-faced old man shook his head. But these are the things in the world. Sometimes, I can inadvertently comprehend something from it. Qin Feiyang smiled. The monkey-faced old man was dazed and shook his head. It seems that our state of mind is indeed different. That's because you haven't reached that level yet. When you enter the nine heavens state, or even the imperishable state in the future, you'll find that some things are in the most ordinary places. Qin Feiyang said. Us. The group smiled bitterly. Not to mention the nine heavens state or the imperishable state, they didn't even dare to think about the nine heavens state or the imperishable state. Trust me, with the spirit vein and the crystal vein, you'll reach that level sooner or later. Qin Feiyang said. The hook-nosed old man smiled. Okay, then we'll look forward to that day. Time flew. The sun gradually set. The red lanterns on both sides of the street lit up. The Divine City was even more lively at night. The white-eyed wolf said, "We should go to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion." Qin Feiyang looked up at the sky. The night had already fallen. He smiled. Let's go. I'm looking forward to seeing Fatso's reaction when he sees us. The white-eyed wolf smiled. Qin Feiyang shook his head with a smile and said, I'm sure that once he sees us, he will definitely complain to us with tears and snot. Then when we sympathize with him, he will ask us for gifts. Haha. You really know him well. Gong Sunbeidao laughed. Qin Feiyang said, We've been brothers for so many years. How could I not understand? Half an hour later, a luxurious restaurant came into the sight of Qin Feiyang and Qin Feiyang. That was the Longfeng Pavilion. At this moment, there were many people surrounding the Longfeng house. Among these people, there was no lack of outstanding young people. Everyone looked at the tightly shut doors of the Longfeng Pavilion, their faces filled with suspicion. What's going on today? The Longfeng Pavilion actually closed its doors and rejected guests. Don't you know? At noon, the steward of the restaurant announced that the Longfeng restaurant has been reserved for the night, and no one is allowed to enter. Reserved. Who's so rich? You can book the entire Longfeng Pavilion? Then I don't know. I heard that this was personally instructed by old Senior Yi. Yishu. Yes. It can't be Yishu personally instructed. Doesn't that mean that even Yishu has to respect the person who booked the Longfeng Pavilion? Isn't that so? But we didn't manage to find out the identity of this person. Everyone was discussing. Creak. Suddenly, the tightly shut doors opened. Two waiters walked out and stood on both sides of the door. Brothers, do you know who's the one who booked the whole place? One of the young men in luxurious clothes immediately ran over, looked at the two waiters, and asked doubtfully. We don't know either, so don't ask. Also, I'll have to trouble everyone not to surround this place. The attitude of the two waiters was not bad as they smiled warmly. So mysterious? Everyone was even more curious. All right, don't block the way. Quickly get out of the way for this young master. Suddenly, behind the crowd, a loud shout sounded. Everyone turned their heads and saw a 1.7-meter-tall fatso, who was wearing a purple robe and had a big belly, walking over with his head held high and his chest puffed out. This fatso looked to be around 20 years old, but his face was full of arrogance. Moreover, although he looked a little arrogant and domineering, the aura he exuded was very strong. A 5-star war master. Situ Feiyang. When everyone saw Fatso, their expressions changed slightly as they hurriedly retreated to the side. Beside Fatso, there was a man and a woman. This man and woman were Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia. Behind the three of them, there were 10 guards. They were all wearing cold black armor, and their faces were expressionless. They looked extremely cold. Their cultivation was even stronger, and they were all 9-star war emperors. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the others also walked to the back of the crowd, and immediately looked at Lu Xiaofei and the others. Isn't that Xiaofei and Xiaojia? The white-eyed wolf muttered. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Xiaofei and his sister, then looked at Fatso and said, "From the looks of it, that little Fatso is Situ Feiyang. Damn, look at his smug look. He's exactly the same as his father." The white-eyed wolf was speechless. Qin Feiyang laughed. Not only are their personalities the same, their figures are also similar. This is what you call a biological son. I only hope that when they have a daughter in the future, she won't look like Fatso. Otherwise, how will she get married in the future? The white-eyed wolf laughed sinisterly. Is there anyone who talks like you? Qin Feiyang was speechless. But then again, Fatso must have accumulated good karma in his previous life to get such a capable and beautiful wife like Li Yan. Didn't I already say so? This Longfeng house has already been booked for tonight. What are you all still doing here? Looking at the monkeys. Situ Feiyang walked through the crowd and slowly turned around to look at the people around him as he shouted. Damn Fatso, are we hindering you by standing here? A well-dressed young man said angrily. Of course you're hindering this young master, because you'll affect this young master's mood. Situ Feiyang said arrogantly. Mood? Can you go in? Looking at his smug look, many people couldn't help but look at him in disdain. Are you all stupid? If I can't go in, why would this young master come to the Longfeng house? Situ Feiyang's face was full of disdain. What? You can go in. So you're the one who booked the whole place? Everyone was stunned. Me. Situ Feiyang was stunned and shook his head. Although this young master is very familiar with Old Man Yi, I don't have the ability to book the entire Longfeng house. Then why did you say fart? Everyone immediately rolled their eyes. Fuck. Although this young master can't book the whole place, this young master is still one of the invited VIPs. What about you guys? You can only stand outside and stare. So, you guys are not on the same level as this young master. Situ Feiyang raised his head and his nose to the sky. That posture was really carved from the same mold as Fatso. He's indeed a little arrogant and domineering. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That's his personality. However, he's quite a good person. He's also very respectful to us old people. The monkey-faced old man smiled. It's fine as long as he's not a playboy. Qin Feiyang smiled. Does he dare to? You don't know. When this Li Yan is fierce, she's even scarier than a tigress. Wang Zicheng said. It can't be right. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. In their memory, Li Yan was a well-educated and well-mannered young lady. Why not? I remember that a few years ago, Situ Feiyang went to a brothel and fooled around with a group of bad friends. Li Yan found out. After Li Yan learned about it, she immediately sent someone to capture him. Later, this kid was so miserable that he was directly beaten up and had to lie in bed for half a month before he could get up. Wang Zicheng said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This was really valiant. So, even if this kid was given 100 guts, he wouldn't dare to be a playboy. At most, he would just flaunt his power with his mouth. Wang Zicheng shook his head. That's not bad. Qin Feiyang nodded. After all, Li Yan is also from a wealthy family, and is used to seeing those playboys. Naturally, She doesn't want her descendants to become like them. Let's talk about it later. For example, young people like Situ Feiyang and Lu Xiaofei, because of our generation, were born to be favored by the heavens. Such people naturally have to be educated well, and be good examples for other young people. Only then can we, the elders, be proud. Viper smiled. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. This was the problem he was worried about. Because of their generation, the descendants of the next generation all became foxes who relied on the might of the tiger to bully others. After all, this was too common. But fortunately, it didn't happen to him. Someone at the scene couldn't stand Situ Feiyang's attitude and said angrily, "Damn fatso, don't just talk. If you have the ability, go in first." "I'll go in." Situ Feiyang smiled proudly and turned around, leaving the back of everyone's head behind. "Brother Xiaofei, sister Xiaojia, don't lower yourself to the same level as these people. Let's go in." Lu Xiaofei and his sister shook their heads and smiled bitterly. This brother, couldn't he keep a low profile? "Welcome, young masters and young mistresses." The two waiters at the door looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They hurried forward to welcome them. They seemed to be a little helpless against Situ Feiyang's character. So be it. Was there a need to stand at the door and show off to these irrelevant people for half a day? Damn, they can really go in. When the people who went to question them saw the three of them enter the Longfeng Pavilion, their faces were filled with shock. "How is it? Are you convinced now? All of you get lost. Don't block the door. We have important guests coming." Situ Feiyang turned to look at the people outside the door and smiled smugly. As for the 10 bodyguards that Situ Feiyang brought along, they were stopped outside by the two waiters. The 10 guards were also quite tactful. They stood on both sides of the door and obediently guarded outside. "We have important guests?" Everyone was stunned. "Ah, there are so many people." Accompanied by a faint laughter, a young man in white landed at the entrance of the restaurant. "Uncle Pei, long time no see. I missed you so much." Situ Feiyang's eyes lit up, and he immediately scurried towards the young man in white. "It's the chief of the divine python tribe, Pei. He's here too." Everyone was shocked. Yes, that person was Pei. Pei was now a famous figure in the Central Divine Kingdom. It was difficult for ordinary people to see him. But now, he actually came to Longfeng Pavilion personally. What was going on? At the same time, staring at the fawning Situ Feiyang, Pei couldn't help but chide. "Rascal, you actually miss me too? I swear to God." Situ Feiyang exclaimed. "Hello, Uncle Pei." Lu Xiaofei and his sister also stepped forward to bow. They were not very close to Pei, but they had met him several times. "You guys are here too?" Pei looked at the siblings and smiled gently. "Yes." The siblings nodded. Pei scanned the empty hall and asked apprehensively, "Are you guys the only ones here? Where are the others?" "We just arrived too. The others should be on their way here too," Lu Xiaofei said. "Seems like I'm early then." Pei shook his head and smiled. "It's getting late, hurry and come in." At this moment, accompanied by the sound of an old man's laughter, Yishu walked out of the back hall of the restaurant. "Greetings, Mr. Yi." Pei hurriedly bowed. "How many times have I told you not to bow so casually? We're not strangers anyway." Yishu looked at him in displeasure. "You're an elder while I'm a junior. I still have to show you the proper etiquette." Pei smiled. Yishu shook his head and chuckled. "Okay, come in." "All right." Pei smiled and entered the restaurant. Yishu smiled and asked, "He invited you here, right?" "Yes." Pei nodded and smiled again. "Even if he didn't invite me, I still have to take the initiative to come and join in the fun since he's back." "That's true. After all, you guys are close." Yishu smiled. "Him? Who exactly is this him?" Even Yishu personally stayed at Longfeng Pavilion to entertain him? The people outside the door were even more bewildered after hearing their conversation. Chapter 2805. Let's go in too, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Okay. Everyone nodded. But before they could take a step, another woman arrived at the door. She Isn't she the hall master of the law enforcement hall, Wang Yuer? I didn't expect her to come too. The central divine kingdom. No, the entire forgotten continent. Who doesn't know this ice beauty? It's usually difficult to even see her, but now she actually came to the Longfeng Pavilion in person? Everyone was in disbelief. Wang Yu, naturally wouldn't show off like Situ Feiyang, and directly entered the 9th floor. You're here too. Yishu looked up at Wang Yuer and smiled. Yes. Wang Yuer nodded. Pei glanced at Yishu and then at Wang Yuer and said, Old Master Yi, why aren't you surprised by her arrival? You still don't know. Qin Feiyang has already put an end to this matter. Yishu smiled secretly. Ended? Pei was stunned and asked suspiciously, how did it end? I've only heard about it, I don't know the details. But what I can be sure of is that the feud between Qin Feiyang and Wang Yu has indeed ended. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to the Longfeng Pavilion now. Yishu smiled secretly. That's true. But the root of this feud is still Wang Su, he has to say it. Pei said. Wang Su has already said it. Yishu smiled faintly. It seems that it has indeed been completely ended. Pei smiled secretly. What are the two of you muttering secretly about? Wang Yuer looked at the two of them suspiciously. Of course, I'm saying that you're beautiful and capable. Especially now, you can charm people with a smile. Pei said with a smile. Wang Yuer was stunned and speechless. Why didn't I realize before that you're so glib? That's because you were too cold in the past. I didn't dare to get close to you. Pei said. You. Wang Yuer was helpless. Haha. This is truly a joyous occasion that makes one feel refreshed. Suddenly, another hoarse laughter rang out, and a white-haired old man appeared out of thin air in front of the restaurant. Greetings, elderly. Wang Yuer and Pei immediately stepped forward to greet him. Grandpa. Great-grandfather. Situ Feiyang and Lu Xiaofei also ran up to the old man. You three little fellows run faster than anyone else. The old man rubbed their heads affectionately before turning to look at Wang Yuer and Pei. You're all powerful figures in the Forgotten Continent now, and you've all been entrusted with important responsibilities. I'm just a nobody, and I can't accept such a great gift from you. Pei shook his head and chuckled. You must be joking. No matter what, we're still your juniors. Brat, you have a conscience. The old man laughed and walked into the restaurant. He asked, Elder Yi, is the banquet ready? I don't think I invited you. Yishu looked at the old man with displeasure. Can't I come without an invitation? The old man was not angry at all, and his face was pleasant. Yishu shook his head and said with a smile, Everything is ready. We're just waiting for the main character to appear. The old man asked, Where is the main character now? I don't know. Yishu shook his head. The old man then looked at Wang Yuer and Pei. I don't know either. Pei said. Wang Yuer shook her head too. The old man looked at Lu Xiaofei and the other two and asked, You guys don't know either? No. The three of them shook their heads. This kid likes to be mysterious? The old man was stunned. Oh my God, he's actually here too. Yeah. This is too shocking. Who is he? He doesn't seem to be very powerful. But why does he seem to have a powerful background? You mean you're not from the Divine City? Yes. It's my first time here. No wonder. This old man may have a weak cultivation level, but he was still very famous a few hundred years ago. A few hundred years ago, he was the supervisor of the Divine City's trading pavilion. His name is Li He, but he has retired in recent years and rarely appears in public. Hence, not many people remember him. However, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is his granddaughter and grandson-in-law. Granddaughter? Grandson-in-law. Yes. His granddaughter is the current owner of the trading pavilion, Li Yan. Oh, I see. Since it's Li Yan, I won't say much about Li He's grandson-in-law. I know that. He's fatso. I think his name is Situ. Yes, Situ Tianyu, and he's Qin Feiyang's brother. That's right. But I heard that this guy is very henpecked. That can't be. He's Qin Feiyang's brother. Why would he be henpecked? Isn't Qin Feiyang's brother afraid of his wife? I reckon that even Qin Feiyang is a henpecked husband. The people murmured softly. Who said that Fat Lord is henpecked? Come out and see how Fat Lord will deal with you. Suddenly, an angry shout came from the back of the crowd. Everyone turned their heads to look, and their faces suddenly changed. A fat man with a big head and big ears strode over. That big belly looked like it was pregnant for 10 months. He was wearing a loose golden robe and looked like a nouveau riche. However, such a fatso was followed by a petite woman. The woman was about 27 or 28 years old. She had fair skin and a slim waist, exuding the charm of a mature woman. The woman was holding Fatso's arm like a little bird. No matter who saw this scene, they would have the same thought. A flower was inserted in a pile of cow dung. Damn, the gap is too big. It's too unreasonable. Such a man can actually marry such a capable and beautiful wife. The people were indignant. You little guys only care about appearance. You're too shallow. Do you know what a beautiful heart is? A beautiful soul, that's what Grandpa Fatty is talking about. You can torture him slowly. Wife, let's go. Fatso glanced at the group of people with disdain, and went straight into the restaurant. A beautiful heart? On the other side, Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf were speechless when they heard this. Since when did Fatso have anything to do with a beautiful heart? Sigh. What kind of world is this now? I really can't figure it out. Look at me. I'm so handsome, but I still don't have a girlfriend. Are women nowadays blind? Someone lamented in their heart. Brother, didn't you just say that he's afraid of his wife? But why doesn't it look like it now? What do you know? This is a sensible woman. A sensible woman will leave enough face for her man outside. It's hard to say when they get home. When Qin Feiyang and the others heard these discussions, they couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. Back home? Of course, they would be served with a washboard. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Thank you, please excuse me. Gong Sunbei walked in front, smiling apologetically while gently pushing the crowd in front. Why are you pushing? Do you think you can go in? Someone looked at Gong Sunbei with dissatisfaction. But Gong Sunbei just smiled faintly. In the end, the group of people finally got through the crowd and came to the entrance of the restaurant. At that moment, everyone looked at them in surprise. Everyone, I'm sorry. Tonight, our Longfeng restaurant is entertaining distinguished guests, so please choose another place. The two waiters also blocked in front of Qin Feiyang and the others, saying apologetically. We're invited. Gong Sunbei smiled. You guys? The two of them looked at the group of people suspiciously. These people, regardless of appearance or temperament, were very ordinary. How could they be invited? I've never seen them before. But looking at them, they don't seem to be lying. It's really strange. The surrounding people were also filled with suspicion. Yishu noticed the situation outside and looked up. At first, he was also a little confused because they were all unfamiliar faces. However, when he saw the white-eyed wolf transformed into a big black dog, his face suddenly changed slightly. He quickly ran out, looked at the two waiters and shouted, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Get out of the way for this old man." Yes. The two waiters were shocked and quickly retreated to the side. Then they looked at Qin Feiyang and the others in surprise. Were they really invited distinguished guests? And looking at Elder Ye's attitude, it seemed that they were very important. You've been waiting for a long time. Qin Feiyang looked at Yishu and said with a smile. Since you know, why didn't you come earlier? We were waiting for you. Yishu glared at Qin Feiyang angrily. I had nothing to do, so I went to walk around. Qin Feiyang faintly smiled. Then he marched forward and entered the restaurant. Gong Sunbei and the others also walked in one after another. Fatso Lian Lihe and Zhuge Feiyang had been staring at Qin Feiyang for a long time. Especially Fatso, his body was trembling. Is he the one Yishu is serving? Who is he? Yishu, Pei, Wang Yu or Fatso and his wife? Which one of them isn't a powerful figure? And now they're waiting for this person. Everyone stared at Qin Feiyang's back, their eyes full of surprise. If they knew that Gong Sunbei, the monkey-faced old man, the hook-nosed old man, and Wang Zicheng were also there, they would be even more shocked. Yishu turned to look at the people outside and said to the two waiters, "Guard outside and close the door. Don't let anyone in to disturb us." "Yes." The two of them responded respectfully and closed the door of the restaurant. Then they stood straight at the door and scanned the people on the street with sharp eyes. Chapter 2806. Outside the restaurant it was noisy, but inside the restaurant, it was as silent as dead ashes. The others had already seen Qin Feiyang, only Fatso's family had not seen him yet. At this moment, the family looked at Qin Feiyang, nervous and expectant. Qin Feiyang smiled, took out a facial restoration pill, and put it in his mouth. The others also changed back to their original appearances. Boss Brother Wolf. Looking at the familiar faces of the man and the wolf, Fatso's eyes suddenly moistened. "Long time no see." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Boss." Fatso immediately pounced on Qin Feiyang and hugged him tightly, saying, "Boss, do you know how much I've missed you all these years?" "I've missed you too." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Damn. What's the use of just missing? Don't you have to compensate me for the mental damage? All these years I've been thinking about you day and night, and I've been in a daze all day. Look at me now, I've lost a lot of weight thinking about you." Fatty exclaimed with tears and snot running down his face. Sure enough, Gong Sunbei and the others looked at each other. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were right. They complained as soon as they met and asked for a greeting gift. Lost a lot of weight. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched, and he kicked Fatso away, saying, "Go and look at yourself in the mirror. Have you lost weight? You've obviously gained a lot of weight." "Have I?" Fatso was stunned. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes, looked at the couple, and said with a smile, "But I'm really happy to see you guys living so well. We're also very happy to see you back." Li Yan smiled. Relatively speaking, Li Yan was calmer. "Boss, I'm not happy at all. You don't know, I've been bullied by this tigress all these years, mentally and physically exhausted. Boss, no matter what, you have to make it up to me." Fatso looked at Qin Feiyang pitifully with a bitter face. "Who are you calling a tigress?" Li Yan's face suddenly darkened as she shouted. This. Fatso immediately panicked. He hurriedly hid behind Qin Feiyang and said, "Boss, did you see that? His nature has been exposed." Situ Feiyang walked up to Li Yan and said disdainfully, "Mom, look at how embarrassing Dad is." "Stinky brat, who are you talking about?" Fatso glared at him. "I didn't say who? Dad, you must be too excited. You must be hallucinating and hearing things." Situ Feiyang chuckled. "Get lost." Fatso glared at Situ Feiyang. Li Yan shook her head and laughed. She looked at Situ Feiyang and said, "Your father is happy. Even if you're happy, you don't have to be like this." Situ Feiyang pouted. "You brat, do you understand? Do you know how I got along with your Uncle Qin back then? We were brothers who went through life and death together. You, on the other hand, have no manners at all at your age. Don't you know how to greet Uncle Qin when you see him?" Fatty stepped forward and smacked Situ Feiyang's head hard on the head. "It hurts." Situ Feiyang immediately rubbed his head and looked at Fatso with dissatisfaction. "You know pain? Do you still need me to do it?" Fatso said angrily. Don't. Situ Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and walked up to Qin Feiyang. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Uncle Qin." "What kind of bow is this?" Fatso kicked Situ Feiyang's butt. Situ Feiyang immediately staggered and knelt on the ground. That's enough. Besides, it's not like you don't know that I don't like this." Qin Feiyang looked at Fatso and shook his head. "No. He's your nephew. That's a must." Fatso's attitude was very firm. He looked at Situ Feiyang and said, "Brat, do you need me to teach you what to do?" Situ Feiyang was about to cry. He lay on the ground and said, "Greetings, Uncle Qin." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He reached out and pulled Situ Feiyang up and said, "You're too much like your father." "Who the hell is like him?" "Henpecked husband." Situ Feiyang pouted. "What did you say?" Fatso immediately frowned. No. Situ Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and said with a flattering smile, "I said that you're a good man who loves his wife." That's more like it. Fatso nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang. He rubbed his hands and said with a smile, Boss, look, your nephew has already knelt to greet you. As his uncle, shouldn't you do something? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. He said speechlessly, You really have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. How would I dare to trick you, boss? I just wanted to say that since it's the first time you've met, you should give me some gifts, right? Fatso chuckled. That's right, Uncle Qin. Since it's the first time we've met, you should at least give me something, right? Look, they're both your juniors, but you've given Xiaofei and Xiaojia such powerful divine weapons and divine arts. I'm their elder brother. Even if you don't give me a better gift than theirs, at least it can't be worse than theirs. Uncle Qin, you're my idol. You can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Situ Feiyang looked at Qin Feiyang. His expression was exactly the same as Fatso's. As expected of father and son, everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. Qin Feiyang also couldn't help but smile. He took out a divine weapon and a divine art. Situ Feiyang's eyes lit up. He had already seen the divine arts and divine weapons of Lu Xiaofei and his sister. Judging from the aura of the divine arts and divine weapons that Uncle Qin took out, they were on the same level as the divine weapons and divine arts of Lu Xiaofei and his sister. Don't worry. Seeing that Situ Feiyang was about to take them, Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Situ Feiyang looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. The divine weapons and divine arts flew to Li Yan and said, Let your mother take care of them first. I'll give them to you after you perform well. Situ Feiyang's face fell when he heard this. Give them to his mother? Wasn't this like throwing a meat bun at a dog? Wasn't it a one-way trip? All right. I'll reluctantly take care of them for you first. Li Yan chuckled. Mom, you can't do this. Situ Feiyang said weakly. What? You have a problem with it? Li Yan glared at him. I wouldn't dare. I was just about to give them to you personally. After all, I'm still so young. Why would I need divine weapons and divine arts? Situ Feiyang smiled flatteringly. You're the only one with a glib tongue. Li Yan glared at Situ Feiyang in amusement. Then, under Situ Feiyang's pitiful gaze, she put away the divine weapons and divine arts. Boss, this stinky brat already has them. As his father, I can't not have them. Fatso rubbed his hands and said with a smile. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and took out another divine weapon and divine arts. Fatso didn't hesitate to snatch them. Qin Feiyang's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. The divine weapons and divine arts flew to Li Yan in an instant. He said with a smile, Here. Then I'll work a little harder and take care of them for him. Li Yan said with a smile. Don't. My lord wife. Fatso hurried over, but he didn't have time. He could only watch as Li Yan put them away. Fatso was also stunned. The father and son looked like frosted eggplants. What was the difference between giving them and not giving them? Why was their life so hard? Dad, why did you fall in love with Mom back then? Why didn't you change? Situ Feiyang sighed. Maybe it was because your eyes were blinded by shit back then. Fatso shook his head. Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Li Yan and Li He were also used to it. Because this kind of situation happened almost every day. Don't say it. It was quite happy to live in such a family. All right, the banquet is ready. Let's go up. Yi Shu said with a smile. Lu Xiaofei looked around and asked, Where is it? Why don't I see it? Look at how impatient you are. Come with me. Yi Shu shook his head with a smile, turned around and walked upstairs. It's all because the food in Dragon Wind restaurant is too delicious. Lu Xiaofei followed and chuckled. Haha. As long as it's delicious. I'll fill you up today. Yi Shu laughed heartily. On the top floor, in a large private room, everyone sat around a table. The table was more than 10 meters in diameter, and the table was filled with delicacies. There were also dozens of jars of wine in the corner. So much wine. Old man Yi, are you going to drink until you're drunk? The monkey-faced old man was stunned. Of course. Yi Shu nodded, then looked at everyone and said, I'll make it clear in advance. No one can use battle chi or divine power to dissolve the alcohol. Bring it on. Do you think I'm afraid of you? The hook-nosed old man said with a provocative look. Arrogant. Don't beg for mercy later. Yishu sneered. Let's see who's going to beg for mercy later. The monkey-faced old man said. Ah. Look at the two of you. Are you planning to join forces to deal with me? Yishu looked at the two of them and frowned. Of course we'll deal with whoever's the most arrogant first. The hook-nosed old man said. Yishu said. All right, I'll accompany you to the end today. As he said that, Yishu carried a few jars of wine and placed them on the table. Since you're so happy, I'll join in the fun too, Li said with a smile. I've been waiting for you to say that. Yishu directly picked up a jar of wine and threw it to Li. Since everyone is in such a good mood, let's try the wine I brought back from the ancient realm. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled. Yishu and the others immediately looked at Qin Feiyang. The wine uncle brought back from the ancient realm is a peerless divine brew, Lu Xiaofei said. Is that so? Everyone looked at him. Of course. My sister and I have already tried it. Lu Xiaofei nodded. Fatso looked at Qin Feiyang and urged, Boss, don't hide it. Take it out. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Hui, give me a few more jars. I really don't have any more. Hui Yi's voice suddenly sounded, full of anger. Don't force me to threaten you, Qin Feiyang secretly said. Fine, I'm afraid of you, okay? Hui Yi was extremely helpless and had no choice but to take out 50 jars of heavenly immortal wine. Straightforward. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. With a thought, 50 jars of heavenly immortal wine immediately appeared on the ground next to him. A peerless divine brew. Is it really that exaggerated? Fatso walked over with a skeptical attitude and opened the lid of one of the jars. An intoxicating wine fragrance immediately wafted out. This wine fragrance. The eyes of Yishu and the others immediately lit up. They knew that this wine was definitely a divine brew. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.